Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Planning Board for the City of Birmingham for Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. Mr. Dupuy, could we please call the roll?
Sure. Janelle Boyce.
Here.
Robin Boyle.
Here.
Scott Klein.
I am present.
Duncan Curry.
Here.
Stuart Jeffries.
Here.
Naseem Ramin.
Here.
Daniel Scher.
Here.
Brian Williams.
Present.
Fantastic. We are quorum. For the record, Mr. Dupuy, Mr. Curry is voting as the seventh voting member tonight. So let's move forward with the review and approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of March 11th, 2025. Do we have any comments on the minutes, corrections, anything?
Only that I meant to put 2026 on the agenda. I apologize.
Oh, 2026. Well, March 11th, 2025 was a great meeting, if I do remember. Any comments on March 11th, 2026?
I'll move approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 11th, 2026.
We have a motion, Mr. Williams. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Scher. Any conversation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous. All right, welcome everybody. We have a packed meeting tonight and a fun, exciting with a couple of great site plans to review. For those of you from the public, whether you're here in the building or you're at home watching on Zoom, you will have an opportunity to provide public input at the appropriate time after some back and forth between the staff, the board, and the applicants. I will call for public comment. There will be microphones here present, and if you're at home, you can use the raise your hand function on Zoom. I will call on you, and you'll be able to provide your brief input at that point. Mr. Dupuy, do we have any changes to the agenda as published?
No, sir.
Fantastic. So let's dive right in. We have our first item of business is 34952 Woodward Avenue and 690 East Maple. For those at home, there are two elements to this project tonight. The first is what's called a community impact study, which is an opportunity for the applicant to provide us with an outline of the potential impacts this project would have on the community itself, given its size. And then there's a second item, which is the site plan and design review. These are two different items. They would take two different motions depending on which direction we all want to go. We're going to start talking about them somewhat together because they are so intermixed. With that, Mr. Dupuy, why don't you walk us through the community impact study for the southeast corner of Woodward and Maple.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Nick Dupuy, Planning Director. Thinking about you all. But as a bit of an aside, a little bit of a housekeeping note, just because it was so recent, I wanted to make sure that everyone in the room knew, everyone in the public knew, that this is a new project. We had a project brought to us by a developer called Ryan Companies, 22 range, that did make it pretty far. They are no longer engaged with the site. This is a brand new team, brand new building. Just wanted to clear that up real quick.
Good point.
It is two separate sites, a large and a small parcel right at the southeast corner of Woodward and Maple. It is, they both have the same underlying zoning, B2 general business, but they are split zoned in MU5 and MU7, which is why you still see the building heights vary. We'll get into that. Frankly, right now, it's a community impact study and a preliminary site plan review. It's technically a 7 to 10-story building. That increase in height comes from what's currently labeled as a mezzanine in what would be the second floor. I kind of make that distinction by saying it's labeled as a mezzanine because technically, according to building code and zoning, it's considered a floor. That's where we get 7 to 10. Typically, should you meet the additional bonus height requirements, we're talking 6 and 9 stories, but we're talking 7 and 10. What's very important to note here is that although we're talking about an extra story here, they are within the permitted height maximums of each zoning district. So to be specific, in the MU5 portion, they're actually below the 78-foot height maximum, and in the MU7 portion, they're about right at the 114-foot maximum, even though there's technically an additional story. So they will be going to the Board of Zoning Appeals for that. They are required to. It is technically a story above what's permitted, but they'll see what the BZA says. As usual, I'd like to hear a little bit about what you think about that to provide to the BZA when we get there.
So, Mr. Dupuy, real quickly, just for those at home that aren't as familiar with this, assuming the applicant complies with the bonus height requirements, they are proposing a building that would comply with the zoning ordinance from a height perspective. They're asking or seeking from the Board of Zoning Appeals to add an extra level inside the building to really dumb it down. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That extra level is not something this board deals with. That is a Board of Zoning Appeals, as long as the height, but the height is legal, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Thank you.
So as I mentioned, it's at the southeast corner. There's two parcels. I mentioned here right up front that to be able to build this building, they'll need to combine the two parcels, kind of standard, ordinary stuff, no special requirements for that. We are here at the community impact study phase first. We do this because there are buildings of a certain size that we recognize could cause some may affect, I should say, some community services, perhaps environment, neighboring properties. So we do a separate additional review for buildings that are over 20,000 square feet in area. This building is a little over that at almost 540,000 square feet. So obviously, we're here to do a community impact study. I'll be kind of not breezing through, but skimming through some of the main points of this community impact study. Stop me if you need to, but of course, I'll answer questions at the end.
Of course.
The first section here deals with planning and zoning issues. So we review the use. We know that mixed uses are permitted over there, residential, restaurant, retail, all good. We do dive into the master plans. We did both here. I think it's obvious that we're working from the Birmingham Plan 2040. That's our current controlling master plan. But because we have the Triangle District Overlay Ordinance still, we thought it worthwhile to at least mention the Triangle District Urban Design Plan, even though the 2040 plan essentially kind of just recommends that we keep on pursuing most of the stuff that we didn't do in the Triangle District Urban Design Plan. For the 2040 plan specifically, one key point is that in the future, should we make good on this recommendation, the downtown zoning district downtown district that we know it is going to extend east into a new district called Maple and Woodward. All the same densities, all the same heights, nothing would change that, but it would bring that side of town into downtown. It's an intense sort of use. It's a mixed-use district, all the things that you can think of when you think of downtown. Also included, it would, the 2040 plan, that is, would support extending the red line or retail frontage boundary standards across the way. There's also a lot of course, parking recommendations in the 2040 plan. It looks to build as much parking as we can, both with development but also public. Moving on to the Triangle District Urban Design Plan, very design-centric, so they like to have modern buildings, contemporary buildings, specific placement, pedestrian-oriented, walkable. In this particular spot, they want to have a very differentiated corner, or I should say some additional architectural features at the corner to make it really stand out as sort of that gateway point to the east side of what will be downtown Birmingham. And we'll get into more of the design review aspects and the architectural standards at final site plan, but it is a key recommendation. It's also nice that the Triangle District envisioned Woodward to be a little bit more than it is now, tree-lined. In specific, there's a lot of new trees here that are proposed, which I thought was really nice. Moving on, land development issues, the environmental site assessment, the geotech. They did submit a phase 1 ESA, or environmental site assessment. That report summarized that there are no recognized environmental conditions or significant data gaps, and that there's really no further exploration required. Thus, there would not be a phase 2 here. They do recommend some things about the existing building, that two-story office building, making sure there's no asbestos, getting in there if there is, remediating it before they tear it down, things like that. The geotechnical report, of course, it's very long. They did make a lot of recommendations about footings and things. I did note in here that I think it's just the way they described it, and I think I can probably just read it to you. They described the building as 1 or 2 levels of underground parking, 3 levels of above-ground parking, a partial single level of retail, and up to 6 levels of residential units. We just want to make sure, we'd love if the applicant could confirm that indeed they prepared their footing recommendations for a 7 and 10-story building, not anything less. For utilities, noise, and air, the standard utilities, DT consumers, they're going to, of course, bury a lot of the electrical equipment that's over there. They'll have a transformer at the southeast portion of their site, right in this area. We'll, of course, have it screened. That's kind of final site plan territory. Air quality was kind of simple. We're in the Southeast Michigan Air Quality District. The report looked good. It's, pretty standard for the area. They don't expect that this development will affect the air quality in any significant way. Environmental design and historic values, if I can summarize this, the site currently is a kind of a gravel lot with some patches of turf grass, a split rail fence, and then impervious surface. There really are no environmental features on site, no rivers, no grade changes, no nothing. So they're not really, there's no issues with that. In addition, it's not in a historic district. It's not close to any historic buildings. So we don't think that it has any issue meeting these kinds of standards or this section. For refuse, we note that there's 2 trash facilities here. If you can see my hand, there's one at the south side adjacent to the alley. It's the larger one. There's also one here adjacent to the retail spaces on the northwest corner. It seems like there's enough room to separate recyclables. We'd like them to obviously separate recyclables, though I will admit, though, for a 540,000 square foot building, the refuse area seemed a little small, but what they indicated in their CIS is that they're anticipating daily pickup, which may offset the size. I'll call them concerns that I just want to raise to you right now, so they can maybe explain a little bit more about how that will work as well, especially since a restaurant got introduced at the corner, and we know how much waste comes from restaurant uses. Might be nice to just hear a little more. Sewer and water, they mentioned there's several things that they can connect to in the Woodward and Maple rights of way. If you saw a little further on, the engineer did review these plans, and they did have some comments that they'll need to confirm future connections and scopes and all those things to make sure it will work, but that there was no major red flags there. Public safety, very similar. The police department didn't really have much concern. Really, any comments? Literally no comments. The fire department, of course, gave their what I would consider pretty standard stuff. Have the building suppressed, have a Knox box, things like that. I'm sure they're happy to comply with all of those. If I may, I'm gonna, because I know it's gonna be the feature of the night, I'll skip transportation and parking and just go through the last couple, well, last one really, which is natural features. I just want to highlight that there's really no natural features here. It's a gravel lot and other impervious surface. I failed to mention in the earlier section that when it comes to sewer and stormwater and things, so I'll mention it here, that they are proposing to have some detention as required by a city ordinance beneath their lower level 2 here. They'll have restrictors and pumps that will send it eventually to the system, but that's required by our ordinances now, and it seems to me that they're meeting those requirements. All to be confirmed by, of course, engineering. So then backing up a little bit, the transportation section, non-car related, they'll have some bike parking. They have some bike parking separate on the mezzanine level, a nicely sized bike storage area. In theory for residents, they'll have bike racks on the streetscape. There's also 2 smart bus stops nearby, one directly in front of their site here in this area, which appears to be slightly relocated. Our traffic engineers, Fleece and Vandenbrink, made sure that just work with SMART, make sure that's all good, make sure they know about the change, but it shouldn't be an issue. The other one that, just for the public record, that was here right at the corner has long been moved south, right in front of the AAA building at the new intersection. That was a SMART project. They put a shelter in. So there's now technically only one shelter adjacent to the site that they'll need to worry about, which is good. We obviously want to support transit users wherever we can. As a part of this traffic study, though, there's a parking section. The parking, of course, is very complicated, which is why I sort of saved it for last.
Mr. Dupuy, maybe if I could interrupt real quickly. Before we get to parking, which I think is going to be a discussion, from a transportation to traffic perspective, the applicant did provide an updated TIS that our consultant has reviewed with regard to just traffic movements on Woodward and Maple. Could you briefly just comment for the public on their findings or recommendations?
Yes, I'd be happy to because I wanted to, and I just forgot. So what's unique about this one is because the Ryan Companies project did a full traffic transportation impact study back in the 2022-23 range. What the approach was here, which was signed off by Fleece and Vandenbrink, was all they really needed to do was validate it. So they did their new trip generation, They did MDOT traffic counts. And what Fleece and Vandenberg said specifically to the transportation side of things, not parking,
Right.
was that they feel it's validated. I think they carried over a few recommendations from that previous report. I'll summarize a little bit. They still want to prohibit left turns out of this approach onto Maple. That's
Correct.
still a thing. They would still like them to discuss with SMART the relocation, slight relocation, mentioning they need to get all the permits. Some recommendations about leading pedestrian intervals, kind of including those, but all carryovers. So that was related to traffic.
So to summarize, the trip generation caused by the new uses do not cause traffic issues, according to the consultants.
Yes, and in my reading, in fact, it's lower. This new version of this building is lower than the 2023, so then that 2023 is considered conservative in their minds.
Okay.
So thank you
Thank
for
you.
stopping me there. So I know this isn't site plan, but just to give you some numbers here, for parking, this is a very big building, something like 224, 28 residential units, over 15,000 square feet of retail, 5,000 of that being restaurant. So the parking calculations themselves are pretty simple. At the end of the day, with all their uses, they're required to provide 351. That's for their private uses for all the residential and commercial. You mentioned earlier about bonus height. They are seeking 2 additional bonus floors in the MU7 and 1 in the MU5. They are required to provide public parking at a rate of 1 for every 300 square feet contained within those bonus stories. That figure is 198. So what we did in the report is we added them together to get 548. So what they're proposing is,
Mr. Dupuy, real quickly, I apologize. This can be difficult for a public that's not used to seeing these sort of numbers.
sure,
They're required to provide, based on the uses in the building, 351, 352, I believe? Okay. They are seeking these additional stories, this additional height, which is allowed by the ordinance, as long as they provide a public good as outlined in the ordinance. Is that correct? There are several options listed. They've chosen the one which is parking, correct?
along with the mixed-use
Mixed use.
provision,
Perfect.
which we were going to get
So
in site
by
plan.
choosing those elements, they would seem to qualify for this extra height.
Correct.
And in order to do so, you said that they need to provide an extra 1 space for every 300 square feet, I believe it is, of extra, or the bonus square footage. Is that about correct?
Right, and that number is 198.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
This is a complex project. I want to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about.
Happy to slow it down wherever
No,
needed.
that's all good. Thank you.
So ultimately, what they're proposing to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just one clarification.
Oh, thank you.
It's public parking is what they have to provide.
Correct.
We said parking. Just make
I
sure.
apologize.
Yeah,
It's public parking.
Yeah, it's-
Parking available to the public.
Parking available to the public. Yes, that's the verbatim language. So what they're proposing, they've got 4 levels of off-street parking, 2 underground, 2 above ground, one being at ground level. In those 4 levels, a total of 390 parking spaces. In the Triangle District, you are allowed to count on-street parking, adjacent on-street parking towards your parking requirements. There are currently 7 in the Woodward right-of-way on this iteration of the plans. So sum total, they're proposing 397 parking spaces. That includes everything that they're proposing to build for their uses and the parking that's required to be accessible to the public, all included in that 397 number. That, in our report, we mentioned is a deficiency of 151. It's worth noting, though, that what we couldn't include in that 397 are 25 compact parking spaces. Again, because that's a little complicated, I'll explain. To be considered a formal, countable, if you will, off-street parking space, we have a specific dimension that's required, which is 180 square feet. Compact spaces, I've been told, in this development, the 25, are in the 150-ish square foot range. Thus, we can't formally consider them as an off-street parking space. But it's worth mentioning that those 25 are still there for compact parking, some of which are in tandem, like stacked spaces, no more than 2, though, stacked at once. So
Does the 25 include the double, the stack?
I'm not sure that all 25 are stacked. Is that
It's not 50, it's 25, including the double stack.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
7 tandems, and
7 tandems
18 compact.
and 18 compacts.
Thank you.
So, so there's that. Ultimately, what they're going to be pursuing is a reduction in their parking. They do have the provisional right to ask to the planning board, based on the provisions of 3.08, to request that the planning board reduce their required parking by up to 50% should they meet basically the shared parking requirements that we all know from Article 4 of the zoning ordinance. That's kind of getting into preliminary stuff. I'll explain it further if you'd like, but ultimately that percentage is 43.2 that they're currently asking a reduction for. At
The
this time,
reduction they're asking for is approximately 43% of the total parking they're required to provide,
Yes.
is what you're telling me,
Yes,
for their
that's-
uses.
And that's a little bit different from the report. I apologize. I made a mistake with the 7 on-street spaces. The report says something like 41.3. It's 43.2.
Okay. So, Mr. Dupuy, I think that even though that's a site plan matter, I do think that this is an impact matter. I think we need to discuss this a bit further and answer any questions of the board, as well as go a little bit further into this. Mr. Sherry, you had a question?
So the 43, or whatever it is, 43.2% reduction, is that from the total, is that from the 390, whatever it is, that meets their uses? Or is that off the whole 198 plus 397, or whatever? Again, your numbers went by pretty quickly, but,
It's a lot of numbers.
yeah.
So the way that we wrote it in the report is that we felt the reduction was not appropriate in the 198 parking spaces that are required to be accessible to the public. So that percentage is off the 351
Okay, perfect.
that they're
That's
required to
what I wanted
provide
to
for the
understand,
private
yeah.
uses. Yes.
Okay. And that, just one other question about that. That 351, is that what's required for building without the extra stories or the building with the extra stories?
It includes the units and the extra stories.
Okay, all right.
So I mentioned the shared parking.
Yeah. Mr. Dupuy, could you explain to the board and to the public, for the record, the ordinance that allows us to consider a waiver and allows them to ask for it, to ensure that the public understands why we're even discussing the idea of reducing the number of required parking spaces?
Yes.
And perhaps how this may differ from, say, something in a B3 or a B4 downtown that is also a mixed-use building, if there are any differences in the ordinance language. Could you please?
Absolutely, and if I may, I'll just read it verbatim. It's short. So the Triangle District provision that we're talking about currently reads, because the Triangle District overlay is intended to encourage pedestrian/transit-friendly design and compact mixed-use development that requires less reliance on automobiles, the parking required by Section 4.45, which is the parking provisions in the zoning ordinance, may be reduced or waived by the planning board as follows. 1, providing shared parking whereby the planning board may reduce the total parking required by multiple uses by up to 50% under Section 4.45G4. 4.45G4 is the shared parking provision in the general zoning ordinance, so it just directs you to that instead of rewriting it, frankly, just to explain that. Which reads very similarly, but importantly, that shared parking provision, the basis of it is that the peak parking demands of those uses in a mixed-use building occur at different times, and that the parking area meets the anticipated demands of all the uses. The planning board needs to make the determinant based on the following, which there's four provisions, so they need to provide us data, a shared parking analysis, basically. They need to explain the shared parking arrangement on adjacent uses, and they need legal evidence. So what they did,
Okay. So before we go there,
Okay.
let me just summarize. What you said was, because of the urban context of some developments and a mix of uses, there's the possibility, at least in the ordinance, that the restaurant will not be open for lunch, for instance, but that the retail will be busy. Those spaces are not going to be marked restaurant versus retail. Therefore, there's going to be a bit of a sharing that is allowed. Furthermore, there's something called internal capture where a resident is going to come down to the restaurant. I think they would hope. So as opposed to 100% of the restaurant guests being driven to the restaurant, they might live in the building, or they might live across the street or in the Triangle District. Is that essentially why we're allowed to look at this and make a determination as to whether or not to waive some portion of that required parking?
You're exactly right, and it builds on some of the recommendations from those plans, those master plans that I discussed earlier.
Okay. Now, are there other sections of the city where that applies, or are there other sections of the city where something different applies? Like I said, is downtown on a B3 or a B4 underlay?
So the answer is yes, and it's another complicated answer, so forgive me, but there's one in particular that's related but not the same. In the B3 and the MX zones, you can get, I don't want to call them automatic because it's still at the discretion of the planning board, but it's a 30% reduction when you provide office and restaurant in the same building, and a 40% reduction when you provide office and residential together, and another 40% when you provide office, residential, and restaurant. Same concept, a mix of uses.
But it's actually codified in the ordinance as opposed to much more at our discretion per some study. It says this is what you get if you meet this criteria. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement,
Okay.
yes.
So this is different than what we've seen in the past in other areas of the city, and the applicant has gone to the trouble of putting together a shared parking analysis, correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Yep, it is.
I just want to make sure that the public is understanding what's going on here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like numbers are floating left and right. So please continue. I apologize for.
Nope. Like I said, we can slow roll whatever you need. So, of course, the applicant I mentioned earlier, as a part of their transportation impact study, did submit a shared parking analysis. Now, it's been reviewed back and forth between our consultants, and the short version is the first time that Stonefield did the review, they used ITE standards for shared parking. Our consultant said, okay, that's good. I think you should actually use the ULI, Urban Land Institute standards, 3rd edition, what if that means something to you. So Stonefield happily did so. They provided a new shared parking analysis to our consultants, Fleece and Vandenbrink. Fleece and Vandenbrink then reviewed that. And I guess the short version, if there's such a thing, is that we got a letter that I sent around to you all. I've got some extra copies if anybody else needs to look at it, but ultimately they,
Is it on?
I would summarize this in my communications.
Mr. Dupuy, was this available in the packet? This came to us via email, correct?
No, this came on March 24th, so after
So
the
it will be
packet.
added to the packet.
Absolutely, and it's part of the public record. Anybody can request it at any time.
Okay.
And I brought extra copies, like I said.
Thank you.
Let's read it. So they suggested that they still think that the math is a little bit off, and that, so they got different numbers. They thought that, based on their view of the ULI shared parking analysis, a recommended parking supply of 288 spaces to accommodate residential employee uses and 90 spaces for customers and visitors is what they would suggest. Importantly, though, they also suggest,
By they, you mean the city's
excuse
consultant?
me, Fleece and Vanderbrink, the city's consultant, yes. There's a couple more important things that they acknowledge that the analysis that Stonefield does, the applicant does, requires that the public parking spaces are necessary to accommodate their uses. And then finally, that if there's any reserved parking for condos or apartments, that Fleece and Vandenbrink feels that though it cannot be considered in the shared parking evaluation. And that is where we've left off. That's as far as we've gotten. And obviously Stonefield's here tonight to explain any of the details, but
Mr. Dupuy, I'm a little confused. The letter from our consultant, Fleece and Vanderbrink, you indicated that per the ordinance, the uses in the building were required to provide 352 parking spaces for residential, retail, and restaurant. Let's forget about the public spaces for a second. That's 352. And I think I just heard you read a letter that said 288 plus 90, which by my math is more than 352. So is Fleece and Vanderbrink indicating that they think they need more parking than is provided and required by our ordinance?
I guess the way it's written, I guess you could say so, and it is different standards, just to have said, our zoning ordinance standards are different than the ULI shared parking standards. I don't know the nitty-gritty, perhaps we can ask Stonefield when they get up here, but I suppose that's how it reads, and that's probably why the second bullet that suggests that the public parking spaces are necessary to accommodate the development plan was made. As in, there's two separate parking pools, they're blending, they're suggesting that the demand on their development will require some use of that public parking. And I think they're very open about that, frankly, if I may say so. They included all of those in their own analyses, too.
I don't know about that. I thought their analysis indicated 275 spaces was the peak demand, and therefore, when you add that to some of the other voodoo math they did on the public spaces, which I'll get to later, they felt that they were close to being adequate. So I think we have a major issue here. Board, I mean, am I overreacting to this? Does anybody else have any thoughts at this point?
Dan?
Mr. Scheer?
I mean, frankly, I'm somewhat puzzled by the second Fleece and Vanderbrink letter, and it may well be because the lingo of traffic consultants is not the kind of English I usually use.
It's not English.
But, so, I certainly want to understand exactly what they mean in the rather complicated context. But I think one of the things it might mean is that their analysis of a shared parking concept is independent of the zoning. And so to the extent that they're suggesting 370 or 390 or whatever those numbers are, the higher number than what Nick described, it may be because that's with reference to what would make a shared parking concept work rather than under the zoning ordinance. But I can't say that for sure.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Dupuy, did you have anything else before? Maybe it might be an apropos time to bring the applicant up to help talk through this a bit.
No, I think that's probably a good idea
Is
at
that
this
a
point.
good point?
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Nick from the board?
I have one question
Yeah.
for you and the chair. In our policy, in plans, possibly in the ordinance, can public parking be part of a shared parking agreement?
That's a good that's a good question, because I think there's an important distinction to be made here. There's public parking like the Pierce Garage public parking, like publicly owned and operated, and there's parking accessible to the public. And I think that's two very different things. So to answer your question, we wouldn't allow, I'm making this up, this is not a real thing.
Be careful.
We would not allow the Townsend Hotel to share parking with the Pierce Garage, for example.
Right.
If the Townsend Hotel had their own 500-space public parking facility, or parking facility that had spaces available to the public, well, that's very different, I think. I think we have other examples of that in this town, like the 555 building, who has parking that's accessible to the public. The property behind the Birmingham Theater, that 3-level parking garage,
Yep.
available to the public, but privately owned. Those are other examples of what I think what it means to have parking accessible by the public.
So as we go further into this and dig down, we need to learn from the applicant the proportion of the potential shared parking that would be available by token money or free to the general public. Is that a fair comment to make? Because if the distinction is that there's public and there's sort of public, if we're in the sort of public area, it would be helpful to know from them what numbers would be available and posted, presumably on some form of indicator system or online.
I can tell you what they
fair?
tell you is it's going to be 198. We've had this conversation a lot, but I'll let them explain that a little
Okay,
more.
all right.
Required one for 300. I think the nuance you're bringing up is one that is going to be a very interesting conversation, but spaces that they build to satisfy use-related requirements are not the same as spaces provided to meet the 1 per 300 for bonus flight height, in my mind. Otherwise, every single parking space in the Kroger parking lot across the street from this development is open to the public, but it's there to satisfy their use, and those are two very different things. And if we want to go down that road, then we're going to have to get the city attorney involved, because I'm not about to sit here for 3 hours to discuss it.
Okay.
But it's an interesting point you bring up.
Okay.
Mr. Jeffries, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Nick, has there been any discussion on how this would be, the parking available to the public, how it would be managed? Is that a city management thing, or is that their managing? And then also, is it at city rates, or is it $50 where no one's going to use it, So some of those dynamics.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I can say that, yes, there's been conversations, but I'd love to have the applicant explain more.
That's fair.
But I can confirm we've had those conversations.
That's fair. Any other questions to share, anything on environmental or anything you want to bring
I
up?
mean, I do have some questions that don't relate to parking, so I don't know if you want.
I'd rather get them out on the CIS before we get into a
Yeah.
discussion here, which I think could,
Yeah, so I mean, my questions regarding the non-parking.
please, by all means, if you have any other
I think
CIS
they really
questions.
are better served by asking the applicant to answer them, and they're not really
Perfect,
questions to
okay.
Nick.
Well, let's do those first when we bring the applicant up then. Anybody else, just so we're on the same page, any other board members have any
I'd like to ask all the
CS-related?
questions at the site
Okay.
plan.
At the site plan, of course. Okay. So we will go, and the applicant is here, the talented team. If you would come forward, anybody who's willing and able to speak about this, and please introduce yourself, and then I think we'll dive into a few questions, and you may have some comments. Please feel free to do so, but we'll dive in from there.
Well, hello and good evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Just by way of introduction, my name is Sam Beznos, and I'm the CEO of BezTech and one of the owners at BezTech as well, and a resident of Birmingham. I know we jumped into parking, but I'm excited to present our vision for the Maple and Woodward development today. I believe this site is the gateway into the city of Birmingham and has the potential to serve as an important connection between the Triangle District and the historic downtown across from Woodward. It will be the catalyst to really activate the Triangle District in the corner. I just want to stress that because, up until now, it really has not happened. But let me give you a little bit of background real quickly on BezTech, because I know we want to talk about the development. Just so you know, I mean, we're a privately held third-generation family business. We've been in business for 70 years, and we're a fully integrated developer, builder, and owner-operator of multifamily, senior living, commercial real estate across the country. And we're headquartered in Farmington Hills, and we own and manage about 30,000 apartments across 14 states, and we employ about 1,300 employees. And we're also building other projects in Michigan and Florida right now. I've had the privilege of working with Birmingham for over 10 years now. We've developed and owned, for some of you probably know, because you've been before, you were at the commission at the time, but we're the owner and operator of All Seasons Birmingham, which is in the Triangle District, and the Enclave, the newly built one just to the east of us. And I believe these are one of the most premier developments in our portfolio. And as a long-term owner of real estate, we take a great pride in our developments, and many of which we've held in our portfolio since the late 1960s. And our approach to invest is with a very long-term perspective, focusing on innovation and quality and thoughtful design and planning and ongoing stewardship. I want to stress this is a project that, we intend on owning and operating for generations. Our approach to development is really a collaborative approach, and we value working with you closely. I know this is an important project for you guys as well as for us. And we hope the end result reflects a shared vision and most importantly enhances the surrounding area. As I think you guys already realize, this site is very challenging. It has some unique challenges based on the heavily trafficked, Woodward corridor and Maple corridor. There's a lot of trade-offs between the mixed uses and how it affects design and feasibility of the project. And, the team here today will get into that and get into, how our approach was to this development and the thought process and all the considerations we made in terms of to get here today on the development we're presenting. I'm confident that you'll see tonight that we've assembled the correct team of professionals with the experience, capability, and vision to see this project through commission. Most importantly, BESTAC has the experience and desire and the financial capability to successfully execute on this project. I know that there have been others, as Nick mentioned, that have attempted to develop this property over the years, but, I want to stress that, we are certainly capable and willing to do so. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there'll be questions for us. We have a full team here, and you're eager to hear about the project. But so I'm going to turn it over to Victor, but might come back, and I'm, of course, be happy to introduce Victor, which I don't think needs any introduction, but I'm here to answer any other questions.
Mr. Bezos, first, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate you. I will jump in and say, whatever you hear tonight, this is all a process of getting the best building here. I, for one, am ecstatic to see a developer of your caliber, with your experience, come back to our town to propose a beautiful building with a great team. So everything you hear tonight is really just about the nuts and bolts of having to get things done. So we're thrilled you're here. You've got a great team. We're not going to yell at you too much, but there's going to be a lot of discussion tonight. But again, thank you for coming.
I
appreciate
understand.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Victor Soroki, part of Soroki Architecture. Before I get into our presentation and introduce the whole team, just so I'm clear, Mr. Chairman, I know we're in the CIS portion of the conversation. I think what I'm hearing is you want to hear from our traffic engineer as it relates to the shared parking study right now. Is that correct?
I think we have a couple of questions related to environmental. I don't know if there were one or two others that maybe we could just get done real quickly first. And then I think you're right, Mr. Soroki. We'd like to talk to your engineer from Stonefield to just talk through a few things.
Right, because our presentation was, it relates to the building design. and
Site
everything
plan,
else.
which is all so important, and I hate
It's
that
going to
parking.
take all evening. But,
I hate
that's
that
right.
that parking is the center of this, but it is right now.
We do
so.
have our environmental consultant, Kevin Kazuski from Pinchin. And so if I can ask Kevin to come up, and if you want to ask questions regarding the environmental report, he would be our person to answer.
All right, before we do that, if I can.
Please.
Mr. Soroki, one of the things that first of all, I'll take it you were kind of the lead on organizing that. I just want to compliment you. It was an excellently put together CIS. Every time as I read through it, that I had a factual question, subsequently that question was answered. Really very, very well done.
I'll take the credit. My son Alex actually was the author of that, but
Well, then never mind, you don't get the credit, Al. Nicely done. But I do have a kind of a conceptual question. In the introductory part of the CIS, there was a statement, I think in a couple of places, that one of the ways in which the building meets the objectives of the Triangle Plan is that it relieves downtown parking demand. And I just want to understand, is that to suggest that folks who are visiting or working in the downtown, say west of Woodward, might be parking over in this building? Or is it something else?
I think it could be a little bit of both. Maybe the word downtown parking demand is embracing also maybe parking demand potentially in the Triangle District as well. we just are saying maybe the greater downtown of Birmingham. So if there are users in the Triangle District that want to park, and the parking, of course, is not free, even our municipal structures, it's not free, there will be a charge for parking, they will have the opportunity to park there. It is not solely a private garage. Many private developments like this have just private structures or private garages. Obviously, we're providing the public parking component as one of the two methods of gaining the bonus floors.
But your expectation is that some, I'll call it users west of Woodward, may come and park at the facility and some.
That's right.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's what I wanted to
Yeah,
understand.
and they're welcome, and we encourage it, and it's part of one of the, I think, the benefits of this project, is the way I would state it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if you have anything else,
I-
or you want to do an environmental question?
As long as your guy's standing up, let's let him.
Okay.
Hi, so if you'd identify yourself for us.
Yeah, just for the record, please.
My name's Kevin Kruszewski. I represent Pinchin, formerly PM Environmental. I've done a ton of work in Birmingham. I actually live here too, so
Oh, okay.
I thought I should declare that. yeah.
All right. So I went through the environmental stuff, and
Okay.
just as a preliminary comment, this is a little unusual in the sense that there are, I think, 3, yours and perhaps 2 other studies, and maybe there is a phase 2 in there somewhere.
There's about 9.
Yeah, okay. Well, in each case, at least the ones that I saw, I didn't read 9, I think I read 3, which was more than enough, thank you. In each case, the study kind of relies on the prior studies.
Sure.
You know, we accept, which I take it to mean that in your professional review, you didn't see anything, quote, wrong with the prior studies, but that you didn't go beyond that and make your own independent determination. You accepted what they had said.
To some degree, yeah.
Okay, and if there was a piece that you didn't accept, then you would have said, call out, I'm concerned about this or that or whatever it might be. Okay, so what that said to me as a reader is that we've got a certain amount of dilution that's, coming on. It's not quite the same as starting from ground zero. And the ones I saw went back, I think, to 2011 or 2013. Maybe the 9 went back farther than that.
Right.
So we're a ways down the road. What I'm particularly concerned about, 2 things that I'd like you to comment on. The first is the surrounding uses. Historically, there was a coal yard adjacent for 10 or 20 years. In my experience, I'm a lawyer, I've done environmental stuff. In my experience, coal yards they're kind of up there with the bad things that are environmentally bad things that happen around town. And then there was a dry cleaner across the street, another area. I think the borings resulted in, I think there was some chromium maybe, if I remember right, and maybe a little bit of like a PNA or something, in any event. So it wasn't a recognized environmental condition. But when you have a site like this that's surrounded by a couple of uses that are questionable, and you're going to be digging down, 50 feet or so for the 2 basements? Anyway, you got two basements, so you're going down,
Some
25,
distance.
30 feet.
pardon me?
25 to 30.
25 to 30, okay, so you're going down more than the 2.5 feet that you might do for a spread foundation for a basement, for a residential building. And you have just a relatively few borings to rely on. Are you planning on having any kind of I'll call it surveillance, when the digging is done to make sure that there isn't a hot spot that shows up? And by hot spot, for those that don't know, I mean an area where some nasty stuff is concentrated.
They've
that wasn't picked up.
migrated,
Yeah.
right. At this point, we are not part of that. What I can say is that from these adjoining property issues, the one thing beneficial about Birmingham is there's a lot of clay. And, these adjoining properties were across roadways, the dry cleaners across Maple. So there is some distance considerations to take into account. There's very little, if no groundwater, which is your major migration pathway.
Did you, pardon me for interrupting, but did you look at the groundwater flows yourself, or you just rely on the?
Well,
the project?
there's no groundwater to calculate a flow.
Okay.
So when we did all of our borings, there might have been a pocket or two where there might have been some fill material where there's some water collected in a perched condition. But in general, I think there were 16 or 20 soil borings done on the property that were just for environmental purposes, not counting the geotechnical work that I haven't seen. But there was no groundwater really to speak of, which again is your major migration pathway for some of these off-site conditions. And like a coal yard, a lot of that is more superficial, where it might run off onto a property or across a roadway and then onto a property, impact the surface.
Then the second concern relates to vapor intrusion.
Correct.
Explain for us whether or not in a project like this, where you've got two levels of parking and, 25, 30 feet down, and then, residential uses on top, to what extent is vapor intrusion or vapor protection a concern when you've got a use that would have generated volatile organic compounds across the street?
Sure. So again, vapor's it's the new thing, and it's something we look at very carefully. In this case, you look at how it can migrate to a property. So again, we're dealing with, a significant clay layer, which helps mitigate any vapor migration. And you also have to have some other indication that contamination is actually migrating onto the property before you'd even look to evaluate for it. And presently, there's nothing. I mean, I know there's a dry cleaner across the street, but I don't think there's any reported releases or concerns that we would necessarily need to address at this point.
Was my memory right that there were a couple of either, I forget the term, PNAs or volatile
PNAs,
organics that were found?
There
on the
might have
site?
been, some.
I think there were a couple of
Yeah.
relatively low concentrations.
Relatively, like below the residential
Yeah.
criteria, yeah. And then the metals are naturally occurring,
Yeah.
so
Okay, all right, thank you.
that's it.
That's it.
Appreciate your time.
Other questions, not related to parking, but,
I think I may have.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, Victor, maybe, I'm not sure if this is for you or an engineer. I see in the CIS that the stormwater calculations for the size of the basin or whatever it is that's down there are based on 10-year storms. Is that really adequate anymore? I mean, we seem to have a 100-year storm every couple of years.
Okay, so we do have PAE is or PEA is our civil engineer, and John Thompson is here. He is the one who has designed that system.
I can answer it quickly without coming up with a 100-year storm.
It's a 100-year storm.
When you say, just so because people can't hear you, what you're saying is that despite what it may have said in the CIS, you designed the system to meet a 100-year storm. Okay, all right.
So
Great, thank
Victor,
you.
that's correct. A 100-year storm is what you're being told. I want to get it on a mic.
Yeah.
100-year storm.
Okay.
And will there be a generator on site? Because I see you've got a force main and
Yes,
some other things. All right.
there will be.
And is it going to be rooftop?
No, it'll probably be in the garage in the lowest level.
And
Vented?
venting, yeah,
And
that's what I was going to ask for.
That's what we've been doing. We did that at RH. We're doing that at 370 Brown.
Okay.
That seems to be the preferred location.
Okay, and it'll be sound baffled and
Yes, of course.
and
Totally.
vented directly to the outside?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Anything else, Mr. Schuster?
Yep, a couple more.
Yeah.
The CIS said that the building wasn't going to be blocking the views of surrounding properties. What kind of analysis was done other than just, I don't think it's happening?
Well, I mean, you can see the building is a corner building. So two of the major facades are on Woodward and Maple. The south facade is on an alley, and south of that is just the AAA building. And then going east of us, there is a 4-story office building, but the orientation of that building is only north and south. There are no windows on the west side of that building. It's a block wall. So there's really no views being blocked.
What about the condo building on Forest between
Yeah.
Elm and Forest Corner, which is kind of immediately southeast of you.
It wouldn't really block any views. I mean, that's a distance away. I mean, yes, you would see it in the background, but we did that building too, by the way. That's where the Forest Restaurant is you're talking about.
No,
correct?
I'm talking about the condos across the
Oh,
street
okay.
from the Forest.
Same thing. That's, again, a ways away, and no different than other buildings in town that are a block away that you would see the building in the distance, but it's not going to block your views or your sunlight or any fresh air or anything like that.
Oh, and the CIS mentions, and this might be a code requirement, but CIS mentions that there's going to be one elevator size for medical carts in a building with, what is it, 190, so whatever, 200?
Actually, all of the elevators will accommodate medical carts.
All right, thanks.
There's 4 elevators, and one of them is a freight elevator, which is huge.
Yeah,
And then the other 3 elevators, 2 for the apartments and 1 for the condo owners, all will accommodate medical carts.
okay, thanks. All right,
Perfect. And then lastly, before parking, Mr. Chair, you brought it up, so I want to tackle it. The building to the east, I believe you're offset from the property line a little bit, but you are digging down significantly. You will have proper earth retention analysis done, and your geotechnical will,
We have a whole team. A tremendous amount of work has already gone into this project, as you could imagine. We have a sophisticated developer and a sophisticated team on a very substantial project. And we have not only the geotechnical engineers, and I know there was the comment of maybe 1 or 2 stories down and 6 stories up. It's totally designed for more than a 10-story building. The soils are very firm, very good. And we have a methodology of how we're going to do caissons and, or aggregate piers, I should say, and foundations. And we have foundation experts and structural engineers assisting us in all that design.
perfect. Thank you. That was an issue on another project a few years ago, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think we're to the point where we need to dive into a little bit to the parking, and perhaps your engineer from Stonefield could come
Yes.
forward and.
So Nick Kennedy is with Stonefield Engineering. I'll let him do the heavy lifting, but I'm here to answer any questions as well.
Perfect.
Nick?
Welcome. If you could please just introduce yourself for the record.
Yeah.
And
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Nick Kennedy. I'm a project manager at Stonefield Engineering. For this project, I'm the traffic and transportation engineer. And obviously, as we'll dive into, prepared the very extensive parking analysis.
Right.
So just to start, just to get this out of the way, Mr. Dupuy did a great job explaining, but I just want to start with the traffic part of it. We agree with all of Julie's recommendations, restricting the left out. Obviously, we have a lot of things to coordinate with MDOT. We agree with all those things. Just want to get that out of the way. So I think just to come back and kind of rehash where the parking stands as it is today, we require 549 parking spaces. That's inclusive of 351 for the restaurant, the retail, the residential, and 2 parking spaces for the leasing office. So that number's 351. The public parking requirement is 198. That's where we came up with the 549. Just again, to kind of rehash where we are right now. The site itself would provide 422 physical parking spaces. What we actually get credit for, taking out the 18 compact spaces, taking out the 7 tandem spaces, is 397 parking spaces. So we provide 397, and we're required 549. What that represents as a whole is a 27.8% reduction from the parking requirement. I don't disagree with Nick's analysis on what our percentage we need relief for. Essentially what he did was he took out the 198 that we're providing. He took 198 out of that. He took 198 out of what's required, and that's where we got the 43.2%. So that math, that analysis is absolutely correct, but when you look at the site holistically, you're looking at a 27.8% reduction from what's provided to what is required. So just again, to kind of quickly go over, and I think it was actually explained very well by the chairman and Nick, what a shared parking analysis is. It's essentially when you take a mixed-use development just like this one, we want to understand how the different elements of the development itself interact with each other. What times of day do certain parts of the development peak? What times of day do other parts of developments peak? And you really want to get an understanding of not necessarily overbuilding a parking lot so that you have parking for the required amount of spaces throughout the entirety of the day, because that's when you start to overbuild, and then you have a parking lot that's a third half empty. So that's why we do a shared parking analysis. How can we maximize the parking while still providing enough parking for all the uses on the site? Just as a kind of a general overview for this development itself, obviously we have a residential portion, a retail and restaurant portion, and then a public parking portion. So again, general overview, residential parking, it peaks overnight. People are home, they're not out running errands, they're not out at work. Your overnight parking is really your residential parking. Retail and restaurant parking, that's sort of your middle of the day, early evening parking. That's when they tend to peak. And then public parking is kind of spread out throughout the day. Really middle of the day, it starts to trickle down as the evening goes on. And then at nighttime, public parking is pretty low. So really what you have is a balancing act here where your two driving forces behind the parking requirement are the residential portion of the development and the public parking that we're required. And they're opposites of each other. Public parking peaks during the day and residential peaks overnight.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
Williams.
Before you get too far along here,
Absolutely.
you came up with parking demand numbers based on usage, percentages, I guess I would say. So can you talk about what you relied upon in terms of study or information to come up with those calculations? I mean, you just didn't pull them out of the air.
I just
So
want to
what'd
make
you use?
sure I have your question right. Are you talking about the shared parking part or?
The shared parking.
Okay, that's what I'll get into
Okay.
right now.
When you get into it, talk about what you relied upon to make the calculations.
Absolutely. So as FNV recommended, we first submitted our shared parking study using the IT Parking Generation Manual. That's the Institute of Transportation Engineers. What they recommended is to use the ULI, which is the Urban Land Institute Shared Parking Manual. It's a very similar process in the fact that they both publish time of day factors, and I'll explain shortly. It's just that the ITE really looks at the parking demand that you need, whereas the ULI looks at the parking supply you should provide. So they're a little different in that sense. The numbers typically come out pretty similar regardless, but that's just why FNV recommended that we use the ULI. I absolutely don't disagree, and that's why we updated our study. So getting into what shared parking actually is, essentially different land uses have published data on what times of day they peak. It's literal percentages throughout the day, every hour of the day. So the ULI, which we used in this instance, publishes those time of day factors for residential developments, for retail developments, and for restaurants. So we took those right from the ULI. They also publish base parking demand rates for each of those different uses. So residential has a certain parking rate, just like the ordinance would have. Retail has a certain parking rate, so on and so forth. So what we did was we took those base parking demand rates, we took the time of day factors straight from the ULI, we took the 198 required spaces and just took that as a blanket number. We didn't change that, look for the ULI, IT, we took 198 and looked at when public parking changes throughout the day. So obviously overnight, it's very low. In the middle of the day, it's very high. So that's really where we got our information from. It's all industry published data. It's all exactly how any traffic engineer would do this kind of analysis.
And can I ask a question of the ULI data that you used? Is there a data publication? What was the basis on which they calculated these percentages are required?
The ULI, similar to the ITE, does studies at developments all over the country. I'm sure there's dates and locations published in the ULI. I don't have them offhand, but it's really kind of the the shared parking Bible, if you will, for traffic engineers. It's exactly what every traffic engineer would look to, actual data that they've went out there, they've studied mixed-use developments, and this is the data that they came up with. So as far as dates and locations, I don't have that answer offhand, but it is everything a traffic engineer would use to do this kind of analysis. The next thing I kind of want to get into is the differing numbers between our ULI analysis and FNV's ULI analysis. Again,
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Jeffries,
feel
I'm
free to
sorry.
interrupt me whenever, by the way, it's fine.
I was waiting to get called on. So I remember back a while, they used to provide a report, Nick, help me with this, that the city did with all our different parking decks and all the different demands and stuff. Do we, or did you guys look at that? Because it just seems to me, if you can get some, it's kind of a unique city in certain ways, to actually look at, what's happening with the Peabody deck, which is right here, or, Park Deck, which is across the street from this too.
We obviously can get those reports. We can generate them from the parking management office, I don't think that we did for this necessarily,
Yeah.
but some of the same.
I mean, this
things
is the
probably
first
would
one
be
that
true.
where anybody's, try to go for this approach to get the extra floors. This might be, it give me a level of comfort saying, hey, we ran it through actual our city parking and it works.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not poo-pooing the idea necessarily, but I think it tracks what Nick's suggesting, is that it ramps up to midday being peak and then it's empty gets at night. So I think what we can see if we pulled those reports are similar things to what they'd say, but I can get them if you need them. That's no problem at all. And I can get them to, of course, the applicant should see it.
Yeah, I think being one of our first ones, it would be interesting.
The world changed.
Yeah, just for the short answer, so I'm on the record clear, we did not review those reports. We are obviously more than happy to work with Nick to take a look. And like you said, data from this exact city is as valuable a data as you could get. So we're more than happy to review that. But for now, what we have is our ULI study. So again, kind of getting back into where the differing numbers come. I just want to establish one more time, our site itself, without the public parking aspect, requires 351 parking spaces. Again, without the public parking aspect. FNV, when they ran their ULI analysis, came out to 378. I think that was a question earlier. Slightly higher. Really, the reasoning is ULI in itself obviously is a blanket for essentially the whole country for any traffic engineer. When FNV did their analysis, they absolutely did it correctly. I'm not saying at all that they didn't, but they ran the ULI analysis exactly how any engineer would run it in the entire country. What we wanted to do is get a better grasp on how Birmingham would park itself. So what we took into account was vehicle ownership rate in Birmingham, the walkability of Birmingham, the obviously mixed-use nature of Birmingham, and as somebody explained, the ability for somebody from the residential to go down to the retail, to go down to the restaurant. So we took into account what I won't say credits, but kind of a more realistic Birmingham approach to this shared parking analysis so that we don't over-design this parking lot. I don't think FNV or Stonefield disagrees that this is a parking lot that will work under certain circumstances. I think that the numbers differ based on how we looked at the actual analysis itself. Again, I don't think we disagree on how either did the analysis. I think we just did semi-different analyses. So the number we came out with, again, FNV's was 378. Based on our analysis, taking into account vehicle ownership rate, the walkability, the mixed-use nature of the site, we came out with a parking demand of 266 for just our portion of the development. Again, on top of that, we obviously need 198 parking spaces for public use, which is kind of what brings me into my next topic is that 198 parking spaces. So obviously, we have a a commitment to provide those spaces for public use. There's, in my understanding of the ordinance, no real definition of exactly how that public space has to be utilized, whether it's paid for, free, what times a day. It's really just, it has to be for public use. Also, in my understanding of the ordinance is public use can be part of our development as well. Obviously, people visiting the restaurant are part of the public. People visiting the retail are part of the public. From my understanding and reading in the ordinance, and this isn't critical to the analysis, I believe it works anyway, but it doesn't say solely for public use, not the use on the site. Regardless of that, when we did our analysis, there's certain hours of the day that the proposed development, the retail, the restaurant, the residential, has to, what I'll call, leak into the public parking. Those times of day are in the later evening and overnight. We're above the 224 spaces that are not for public use. So we would essentially leak into the public use or public parking spaces. Again, when we looked at the shared parking analysis, what we didn't want to do is just take out 198 spaces and then look at the parking, because you're essentially taking 198 spaces that are going to be empty at night. You're going to have a garage that, probably 8 to 10 hours a day is completely empty. To have the ability for the residential to be able to park somewhat in the public parking spaces is, to me, a good benefit where you're not over-designing a parking garage. So just to give you, and I apologize for all the numbers, just to give you the numbers on that, the 266 max parking spaces for our development would require us to bleed into the public parking 42 spaces. So out of those 198 public parking spaces we would provide, 42 of them after, I believe, 10 p.m. would be utilized by the residential development. Again, it's a portion of the public parking, and there's certain ways that it could be signed or striped that it's still public parking when public parking is.
Can you please run through that number again? Because I'm just doing quick math in my head, and that doesn't seem to jibe. So help me understand where I'm going wrong.
So
You're suggesting 266 is the number that should be used for the uses. The shared parking would support that. Okay.
Correct. That's
And you're providing 199, if I'm not mistaken. So 260 minus 199 is 60 some odd spaces. So how am I only bleeding 40 out of the city's system?
that is my apology. By ordinance, you're correct. It would be 60 something. I could do the math quick. What that doesn't include is the tandem spaces or the compact space. So physical parking spaces. And I
get you.
it is a little confusing. And
I want you to know you did an excellent job with your analysis, and you did a great job explaining this. And I'm a PE too. I mean, I'm not faulting you for anything you've done here.
No.
However, there are issues beyond math that are at play here, so I don't want to get lost in that right now. But
I completely agree. So really what I'm trying to say is that there would be 42 physical public parking spaces that would be utilized by the proposed development on the site. Obviously, that's accounting for people from the development parking in the compact spaces and the tandem spaces. Again, that's a fraction of the public parking. By my understanding of the ordinance, there's nothing that says the development can't use the public parking. And again, I'm just a traffic engineer. I'm not an attorney. I crunch a lot of numbers. But I think the important thing to consider when looking at this kind of development and the goals of the ordinance and the goals of providing this public parking should also be to not over-design a parking garage that isn't going to be used. This isn't a development that we're saying is going to utilize all of the public parking all the time. It's really when public parking isn't peaking or at a maximum is when our development needs to utilize some of that parking. So I think, when you look at the mixed-use nature of this site, I think it blends very well together. I think the 422 physical parking spaces is more than sufficient to not only accommodate our proposed development, but to satisfy what I believe is the goal of the ordinance in providing that 1 for 300 square foot parking requirement. I am more than happy to
Yeah.
answer any questions or re-go over any numbers, because it was a lot.
I'll throw it to my board first before I dive into what I'm admittedly far too into. Mr. Scheer.
So I have a number of confusions. I hope you'll help me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Let's start with, maybe what, and did your analysis consider, or does it matter whether any of the, 4 floors of parking are restricted in some way, that the public can't get to floor 1, or what, was that relevant, and did you consider it?
The analysis itself did not consider it. It took the totality of the parking spaces we have and the total parking spaces that we need. Obviously, there's no floor with 198 spaces. They'd have to be spread out through multiple floors. So as far as, blocking some of the floors or gating them off, I really don't think that's feasible, because we need, 2+ floors just to meet the 198 parking requirement.
So I'm clear. So what you're saying is that it's not, this shared parking model makes it impractical to, in this project, to gate off a section for just the residents. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
all right.
For this
Right, for this.
project, yes.
Yeah, okay. The next question is, I looked at what I think was the ULI hour-by-hour chart.
Yep.
And I thought that I saw that peak demand, and I didn't look at, I was just simply looking for the highest number. So what I thought I saw was that at 6 p.m. on weekdays, there was a demand for 384 spaces.
I'm looking at the weekend. 382.
82, okay. And then, so I wasn't too far off, that's good. And then
It's
on the
printed very
weekends,
small.
at 1 p.m., 402.
Those numbers are both correct.
Okay, all right. So now I want to understand how that relates to the real number of spaces in the deck. So am I understanding that, well, maybe I need to ask, ignoring the compact and tandem spaces, because they don't meet the ordinance size definition, how many spaces are there? Is that 397? Is that what the...
I apologize, just to clarify, you're saying get rid of the compact and tandem. How many are there?
Yeah,
397.
okay. So there are 397 physical spaces that meet the, however, whatever that's,
Correct.
180 square foot
Correct.
requirement of the ordinance. Okay. And does the ULI, the shared parking models, do they have an accepted tolerance? In other words, that, are they good to within 5 or 10 or 20 or 30%?
I don't believe so, and I think the reasoning is that what I was trying to explain earlier, the IT looks at the parking demand you need. The ULI is looking at the parking supply you need. So I don't think they have a 10% confidence
Okay.
interval, 25. That's what we think you need for this site.
Well, so what I'm getting at is not understanding any of this beyond trying to work my way through it. If peak demand is on weekdays 384 against 397, which is a relatively narrow cushion, and if on the weekend it's 402, which is a very narrow deficit, what should folks in our position be thinking about that? Is that, I'll just leave that open-ended question.
That's absolutely a great question, and I think the biggest thing is when when those numbers that you're looking at, especially the 402, which is on the weekend at, I think, 1 o'clock, that's when the public parking, we're saying, is at 198 spaces occupied. So nearly 200 people are coming into that parking garage and, going wherever they may go, running errands, going to a restaurant, wherever it may be. So when I look at that, just talking physical parking spaces, that still leaves us 20 parking spaces. I still believe 422 is enough. I understand the ordinance. But when looking at physical parking spaces, we still are at a surplus.
Now, let me stop you, because why are you saying that 422 is adequate? Maybe I missed that part.
Well, the parking that we would see at that time at 1 o'clock on a weekend is 402, whereas we have 422 total parking spaces,
So that-
Including
including the tandem and the
Oh,
compact.
okay.
and the on-street.
Yeah, okay.
And the on-street,
Now I understand where you're,
And again,
Where you're coming
apologies
from.
for
Okay.
any confusion.
yeah, no, it's,
So I still think 20 in surplus is enough. Essentially, what that comes down to is if 100% of any parking garage is full, you have to go find another parking space. Those numbers and those peaks are when we're saying the public parking is using all 198. So, I think it's kind of a balance. That's where our parking is kind of starting to get towards its minimum. The public parking's at its maximum, just like any other on-street parking garage. If you can't find a public parking space, you have to go find one somewhere
so
else.
last question, because you prompted something.
Sure.
So if you were in that totally full situation for the public parking, and let's say we're at the 402 world, and a resident comes in with a non-compact car, a boat, so to speak, so they would have to go park somewhere else for a few hours.
Well, I don't think so. One, because there's still a surplus. I'm saying the max is 402, and there's 422. I understand the question because they don't have a compact car. They can't
Yeah.
park in a compact space. But I think the compact spaces, and especially the tandem spaces, are something that, while we're not assigning all these parking spaces to residents or anything like that, tandem spaces obviously would have to be assigned to somebody. You can't have a retail customer and a restaurant customer park in the tandem space. So I think there's certain things that we could certainly avoid that scenario where somebody comes in, they don't have a compact car, and, then they just have to leave. I think, sorry,
No,
1 second.
when you finish up, I got
I
it.
think it's just important to understand that, again, when those maximums at 402, those peak periods we're talking about here, that's when residential parking is at its lowest. So, that's why we do these kinds of analyses, and that's why we look at this from a supply perspective, is to get an understanding of what we actually need in the garage without over-designing a garage, with hundreds of spaces that aren't going to be used.
Yeah. Our challenge is to, I guess, kind of think about which way that balance goes. Is it better or worse to run the risk that there's not enough parking and people end up somewhere else? Or is it better or worse to overbuild? So, and I'm not saying that there's a right answer. That's just what, sitting here, I'm
I completely
thinking about.
understand.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Mr. Jeffers?
I just want to make a comment, because I had 12 years parking right across the street from this development. And my biggest pet peeve is when the city does one thing, we make somebody else do another. That Peabody deck has got 150 square foot spaces in it all day long. And here's how it works, because I know. Those spots are, if there's two of them together, then somebody will hog, and then that spot's going to be one of the last ones, right? But at the end of the day, I have seen people park in that deck, full-blown Navigators, Tahoe, Denali's, whatever. And we've even had a woman in our office, it's the last spot, had to go out the tailgate to get out of the spot. So that's how it works with, so the 150, we've got them. Yeah, the SUVs don't fit, but I don't know, we've made it work for decades over there.
I will just add to that, it is 18 out of 422. We're not proposing a quarter of the garage to be compact. It's really, we wanted to maximize the parking we could fit in the garage, so there's some, kind of nooks within the parking lot that we're like, we can fit a compact space. We understand it's not going to count as a space when we're looking at the ordinance, but we'd prefer to have it than not have it.
All right, Ms. Boyce.
Just a question. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. You're suggesting that none of the 4 floors would be gated and restricted parking for, no.
Correct.
Definitely not. And the only possibly reserved spaces would be the tandem spaces? Is that also correct?
I think it's kind of a loaded question, mostly because, public parking itself could come in the form of a monthly pass of some kind, so that is sort of reserved. So what I'm trying to say is the tandem would have to be reserved. The rest of the parking spaces would be shared among the uses.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
And can I also, just for the public record, what we're all saying is there would be no restricted access. There's going to be gates at your parking structure, correct, to gain entry to it?
The entry.
But that would be
Entry
it,
points.
just to.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Municipal store.
Of course.
So we say gates restricted, but to get in, yes, but to change floors, no.
Understood.
is
I
the
understand that,
answer.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Kurt.
So it is gated.
The entries,
Okay.
yes, the floors themselves.
Just say you don't live in the building and you want to come and park in there for whatever later, and it's full. How do you know, how do you avoid just going in there, driving around and leaving? Is there some kind of number indicator?
As in, like, telling you how many parking
Yeah.
spaces are left? I don't believe one is proposed.
We haven't anticipated one today. Not that we couldn't do one, but again, our comfort level is that we have sufficient parking, and that it would be very unlikely, maybe during dream cruise, we might see that garage want to get occupied, but it's very unlikely that that garage is going to be full, given what the information that we have. But if we need to do a number monitoring system, like you see at more sophisticated decks or airports, that could be done.
Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to jump in. Just thank you, by the way. Excellent work. I appreciate what you've done here and your explanations. It's been very good. I think this might be a little bit more geared toward Victor or ownership, but maybe stand by.
I'll be waiting.
But I understand that there are spaces in the Peabody deck that are smaller. I understand the practicality of things. I understand the ludicrous nature of sitting here with 198 empty spaces saying, why are you short 100 and some odd, or 50 or 90 or whatever? I understand how ludicrous that all sounds. Unfortunately, we are beholden by the ordinance. We cannot count the tandems. We cannot count the 150 square foot spaces. And we can't just say, yeah, you're probably right. We have to go by the ordinance, not by anything else. So, Victor, here, let me just lay out my concern. I think it's shared by perhaps some others, but my concern. In order to obtain the bonus height for this site, the ordinance does say that you must provide 198 spaces available to the public. Now, if we're going to get into a semantical argument about whether spaces that you're using for your uses that happen to be available to the public should be included in that number and count, well then, I don't mean this negatively, I'm going to shut down and say that I need the city attorney to opine. Because if that is the case, every single parking spot at Kroger is available to the public, and that they should get bonus height too. And it's a real slippery slope. So just from my perspective, I keep these two into separate buckets. You're required to provide 198 to get the bonus floors. You're doing that. You're required to provide 151, if my memory serves, for the residential, restaurant, and retail uses.
351.
Did I say 151? I apologize. We're solved. I just solved the problem, didn't I?
351.
Pardon me, 351. Thank you. You are providing 199. We have a shared parking analysis, very well done, that indicates, on one hand, you believe that that really is closer to 260, 270. Let's just use round numbers. Meaning that out of the 350, you really only think you need 260, 270, what have you. So you would ask for a waiver based on the shared parking to that number. We have a consultant for the city that's here to help us that says that number is different. And in fact, that if I'm hearing it correctly, and I got to believe I'm not, but if I'm hearing it correctly, they don't think we should give any shared. You could argue they don't think we should give any waiver because you're underparked, which to me doesn't make a whole lot of intuitive sense, quite frankly. But we're at a quandary here in that we've got two different numbers for our target. Do I believe personally that shared parking and internal capture, et cetera, is a real thing and that you really need 350? Probably not. Yes, I think it's probably a real thing, but you probably don't need 350. Am I willing to sit here and say you need 260 or 280 or 200? I don't know anymore because I've got two qualified professionals, one who works for the city, telling me otherwise. So I think we need to get on the same page with regard to that, just so we understand the target, in my mind at least, before I feel comfortable with any discussion of a waiver. For the record, intuitively, if you tell me, it's going to be about a 20% decrease in parking demand because of all the mixed use and internal capture, that just gut feeling sounds to make sense. 40, 45%? Oof. That doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, I know I'm using numbers of just the use, and I keep coming back to that because, unfortunately, if the city is going to allow you to have 2 extra stories on a portion of the site and 1 extra story on another, there's a public good that has to be provided. And if the city accepts that public good in 198 parking spaces and then turns around and says you can use 50, 100, 150 of it to satisfy your required parking, the city's just subsidizing your project. And I don't know how to get past that, particularly when I know how ludicrous it is because the spaces are there. But I'll tell you, I can't get past it. The city cannot subsidize your required parking. And for me, I need to know that your engineer and the city's engineer are on the same page as to how many spaces they think we could potentially waive. And given the nature of this site, I'm inclined to think a waiver is appropriate, but I have no idea where that number lies anymore. And I'm going to need a lot of help to get there. I don't know if the board has any other reaction to that, or Victor, if you have a reaction, I just got to lay it on the line for you. I hate to keep spinning wheels.
Okay, well, let me make a statement if I can. And I understand, Mr. Chairman, what you're saying. And respectfully, I'm not so sure we completely agree with your perspective. So when I look at the Triangle Overlay District out of Illinois, and I look at the ways in which we can get additional building height, and it's, I'm going to read the definition. It says additional buildings or portion of buildings that are 100 feet or more from a single-family residential zoning district may have the additional building height and number of stories or feet noted in section so-and-so, so-and-so, where 2 or more of the following are provided as part of the development. The 2 criteria we got to meet. We chose the criteria of additional parking, and we chose the criteria of a mixed-use building, which is more than 50% residential. I don't think any of us disagree with the residential mixed-use building. So let me read the exact language of what the ordinance says. So item number 1, a multi-level parking structure that offers parking available to the public. Parking available to the public at the rate of 1 parking space available for every 300 square feet of building floor area allowed in the additional stories. Where additional building heights are proposed without additional stories and so on, it just goes on to us one thing. It does not say parking spaces exclusively or solely for the use of the public. This is a private building. Many private buildings don't have public parking. We are saying we will make 198 spaces available to the public. We are telling you that. We're also telling you that we have probably the largest parking facility in the city being proposed, 422 spaces. You can call it less if you want. I'm going to tell you there's really 422 spaces because I agree that compact cars should be included even though the ordinance doesn't do it. The reality is there will be those spaces. I don't think anybody who would write this ordinance or sitting on the board or any of us in the public would say, we want you to build 198 spaces and never use them. You can never touch them. That would be kind of ludicrous, right? Why would we want to build a building that is 50% of the time going to be empty? That because 50% of those parking spaces of the night are not going to be used. So the sensible, sustainable, common sense approach of shared parking is to utilize these parking spaces at different peak times. Our peak time, just keeping the simplicity instead of going through all the numbers, our peak time is at night, the public peak time is in the day. Visitors to the building are public. Patrons to the restaurant are public. They should be able to use those spaces and our spaces holistically, just from a common sense standpoint. I think it makes a lot of sense to look at it that way instead of saying, no, those spaces are solely for the use of the public and it cannot be attributed to your building using them at certain times of the day. If we fell way short, we would have had a problem. We don't fall way short. During the day,
According to the ordinance, you're 150 short on your uses.
we're 150, but not from the practical use of a shared parking study. That's my point. I mean, we're using the
Well,
practical shared use.
Fleece and Vanderbilt says that you're actually more than 153 if we believe what their letter says. They're not here tonight. I apologize for that.
I know,
but
unfortunately, they're not.
You know, this is the conundrum, Victor. I don't disagree with anything you just said. I love the proposal for this site, and it pains me that we're sitting here for an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes talking about 20 by 9 pieces of concrete to park metal. It pains me. We haven't even got to see your elevation. It kills me. However, we're beholden to the ordinance. And if you do believe, respectfully, that any single parking that any development provides that is open to patrons qualifies as parking available to the public, then what I think you're saying is that almost every single project in this city that provides parking is providing parking for the benefit of the public, and therefore it could be eligible for a hike.
I'm saying that
You are.
building owners who have offices nearby or other people visiting other restaurants nearby can come and use our parking structure.
Are you going to charge visitors to the restaurant for parking?
We haven't gone that far yet.
Okay.
We really haven't.
Not saying you shouldn't. I'm asking.
I mean, I don't know yet. I really don't.
Again, I would just say I am such a proponent of this project. However, I am not prepared to move forward on anything until we get a clarity on parking numbers between the consultants. And if you would like to discuss this further, we get a city attorney opinion on what constitutes parking that satisfies the bonus height. Because as of right now, I appreciate, I understand, and I respect your argument, but I think it's wrong. I'll just leave it at that.
Can I just add one comment, just so I put it on the record? our office and F&D have different parking numbers. Part of that is that we assume that, customers of the retail, or I'm sorry, employees of the retail, guests of the residential, some of the other people who go to the residential or the retail or the restaurant are utilizing the public parking as well. So that's part of where we get different numbers. I completely agree with you. We should come to the same number. I totally agree with that. But it's, again, not that we disagree with how you do analysis.
I'm not saying either you were wrong.
Right.
But just like with the traffic, with the TIS, if you come up with something and the city comes up with something, you don't just come to the meeting and say, well, and you're not saying they're wrong, but I mean, you figure it out.
Agreed.
You come to a conclusion that this is the assumptions we've made, and the city says, you know what, you're right, I buy that. The number is X. We're in a position, we're not in a position up here to delegate that or to argue about that and to figure that out on our own.
Absolutely. I really just wanted to clear up why.
I get it. No, I totally get it.
So let's,
I mean, Mr. Chairman, are you of the opinion that the 198 spaces cannot be used by our development? Is that?
Not in the least. Not in the least. I'm of the opinion.
Ordinance say that?
I'm of the opinion, not in the least.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm of the opinion that in order to obtain the bonus heights, you are required to satisfy two elements for the public good, and they are listed in that element.
Correct.
And if you are telling me, and part of that is to provide one space for every 300 square feet of bonus square footage that you're receiving. There is no way the ordinance was ever intended or written to allow you to include required parking that you're already supposed to be providing in that number to overlap. Otherwise, the city is simply subsidizing your project.
But doesn't the city, that's right, isn't there the provision in the ordinance that also allows the planning board the discretion that through a shared parking study, we can reduce our parking reserve?
Absolutely, and I'm all ears. And like I just said, we've got two radically different numbers here that haven't been reconciled. And I'm not about to sit here and tell you I believe one over the other. I will tell you empirically, I think 260 is too low. This is just my gut. And I think what Fleece and Vanderbrink is supposedly saying is too high, but that's just me riffing, quite frankly. I'm not in a position to make any decision. I mean, this is a vote of the board, so I mean, everybody else, please dive in. But.
so, Mr. Chairman, I tend to agree. Victor, the ordinance also doesn't say that it's 300, one space for 300 less any shared parking credit. And so there's potentially an ambiguity in the ordinance. This isn't the forum to debate or decide, what that ambiguity is. We're, as Mr. Klein indicated, we're bound by the ordinance, good, bad, or indifferent. And I mean, I tend to agree that so I just say one thing and then suggest that, your lawyers need to talk to the city's lawyers. But from one perspective, you're not providing 198, you're providing, 156 or something like that, because there are moments in time where you're using, what was the number, 42, I think, spaces. So there's not, from that perspective, there's not 198 available to the public at those moments. And the question that one of the questions we have to wrestle with, you have to wrestle with, is the ordinance gives the developer a very, very valuable right. Those two floors, which are what, another 54 units, if I remember right, are
27 in our case.
27, I thought the extra floors were 36, but whatever.
Well, maybe there's the 27 plus 8, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so,
Maybe
all right, so
35.
Yeah, it's 35.
35 units, that's extremely valuable.
Sure it is.
And the ordinance says a developer can have that, in this case, extremely valuable right, if it does these things. It doesn't say if it does these things with such modifications as the planning board might find to be reasonable. So the question of what that language means, is not something we're going to settle here, and certainly not something that I'd be comfortable saying, yeah, okay, we're we're voting for the, I'm certainly not prepared now to vote for the discount, despite what I may think of the reasonableness of, the presentation that you make.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Williams?
I've been remarkably restrained, I want to point that out.
Check your pulse in a moment.
But here's where I think we are. I think the city attorney needs to weigh in on this, on the interpretation of the ordinance, number one. I'm not even sure I know how to articulate the question to the city attorney right now, but I think we need guidance from the city attorney. Secondly, I think the traffic consultants need to meet and reconcile the numbers, or at least explain in very concrete explanations to us what the differences are and why. And we don't have that. So I think we need to postpone because I'm not prepared to go forward. I'm not the city attorney. I may have an opinion on this, but it's irrelevant. I understand the points that have been made by the various planning board members, but in my view, we should not proceed without the city attorney weighing in and without the consultants coming to some conclusion. And we got the report this week, and frankly, I haven't had time to digest it and fully understand the responses. So that's where I am. So whether that's a form of a motion or however you want to do it, we would come back quickly. I'm not prolonging. I know time is money, and that's my views.
Any other comments? I need to go to the public before we come back and talk and finish this up.
One
So I want
observation, which is, I think we're in a position to approve the CIS, but that's just my sense.
To accept it.
To accept
We
it,
don't
I'm
have
sorry,
to
yeah,
approve it, to
thank
accept
you,
it.
that's right, we
And
accept it.
I would actually encourage, if we could, at least get that portion behind us. Obviously, the shared parking study is the crux of the issue and is going to be in the preliminary section.
I tell you what, let me go to the public, and then we'll bring it back and talk about that very point. I think that's a worthy discussion topic. Any other comments before we get to that? All right, I'm going to open this up to the public. Is there anyone from the public, whether you're here present? If you are, you can come forward to the microphones. If you are at home on Zoom, you can use the raise your hand function in the middle center console. Anyone care to comment on the community impact study that we've been discussing for this project at the corner of Maple and Woodward Avenue? I do not see anybody from the public here standing up. Is there anybody from the public online? I do not see any hands going up. Shocked. All right, we're going to bring it back to the board. Wow. All right, board, let's talk about this. Mr. Chair, Mr. Williams, I tend to agree with you with regard to the deep issue and the need for the city attorney and for the consultants to get together. However, Mr. Chair brought up an idea of potentially accepting the CIS. I'd like to hear other opinions, but let me ask the devil's advocate question to get this thing rolling. In a lot of ways, I get what you're saying. In your mind, does the lack of clarity on the parking cause you any concern related to the ability to identify impact or not?
No, I think that the purpose of the CIS is to lay out, the various public impacts. I think it does that. I think we're well aware of the impact. We're not in a position to make a judgment.
We're not approving it.
Right. But I think, I think, let's be candid. If we postpone the site plan piece, when this comes back, we're going to be talking about the parking and the site plan, and does it work, and should we approve it? We're not going to be saying, go back and do something more with the CIS.
Fair.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that last
Why
point.
don't you make a motion?
He gets it.
Make a motion.
Well, hold on. Any other comments related to this? Any other board members wish to comment on the CIS?
Make a motion on the
Well, once he finishes, let's give people a chance to say something.
I saw some scuttling over there. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. Do you have anything to comment before we talk about potentially
think
accepting the CIS?
Accepting the CS is fine. I know Sam would like to make a comment either before or after you take the motion.
Okay,
I would be happy to make a motion,
go for it, Mr.
which is
Boyle.
taken from packet that we have. A motion to accept the community impact studies provided by the applicant for the proposed development at 3492 Woodward and 690 East Maple with the following conditions, 4 of them. The applicant must resolve all issues related to the transportation impact study as requested by the city's traffic consultants. Oops. The applicant must satisfy all recommendations of the CIS. The applicant must resolve all issues related to the transportation impact study as requested by the city's traffic consultants. And
That was the
4,
same thing,
the
twice.
applicant must comply with the requests of all departments.
It was in there twice.
Yeah, did you comment on the combination of parcels, Mr. Boyle?
I am just looking at that, yep.
Oh,
I'm simply reading what's
Okay,
printed.
I don't think I heard it, so could you?
I didn't hear it.
Could you clarify that you're including that in your motion?
I am including that in the motion, yes. Yes?
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Boyle. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Scher. Conversation at board level. To the public one last time, would anyone from the public care to comment on the motion to accept the CIS report for this project at Maple and Woodward? Any comment from the public on the motion to accept? I see no one standing up. I see no hands going up on Zoom. Bring it back to the board.
Roll call.
Yeah, we'll roll call this, Mr. Dupuy. Let's get you working.
sure. Duncan Curry,
Approve.
Stuart Jeffries. Approve. Daniel Scher.
Yes.
Brian Williams.
Yes.
Janelle Boyce.
Yes.
Robin Boyle.
Yes.
Scott Klein.
Yes. All right, excellent. So the CIS has been accepted, which brings us to the second element, which is the preliminary site plan. I know, Mr. Bezos, you'd like to say a few words, and Victor, between the two of you, would you like to proceed with more of a presentation on the site plan tonight, given what we've talked about? Or how, I don't want to take your time from you, but I also don't want to force you into something that you may not want to do.
Well, I mean, first of all, I appreciate your support in the CIS. It's certainly helpful, and I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the commission, the healthy discussion on the parking. As I stated in my intro, I knew this was going to be a complex conversation and a complex site. And I'm glad that you asked about the continuing the presentation, because I did want to point out a few things. You know, I think if we have the time, and Victor kind of goes through the design a little bit, I think it will help explain some of the design factors and things we incorporated into the development that had an impact on parking as well. It may not change the questions or concerns you have in terms of the ability for you to waive parking or what's required or the interpretation of the studies, but I think it's important to recognize the elements that we've incorporated into the design of the building that I think really benefit the city and contribute to the overall, the feature and the look of the building and the functionality of the building and our ability to even serve the public for parking. But, you know, there were trade-offs, and that's what I started with about parking. It's, you know, there's only so much we can do. And I do want to point out, even if we did not have the bonus height, the project would not have more parking provided. We can only go so far down, and we can only go so far up. And, you know, our goal is to build this project, not to have vacant land that's been sitting here, you know, since whatever, 20 years, or 15 years since it was knocked down. So feasibility is a very important component of this. So I think it would be good to take a little bit of time to go through that. But before I do that, just to touch on a couple of things about the parking. I know you said you want the city attorney to opine on that, and it's certainly your purview, but I mean, I do think that the city staff has already sort of outlined, and Nick did a good job, that the planning commission has the ability to waive a certain amount of the required parking, regardless of what those numbers are. You know, whether you count them as 27%, 35, or 40%, 43%, it's still within the range of your authority to waive that. That's it. I don't think that that's been disputed by the staff and the reviewers.
I don't think
at
it's been
all.
disputed by us.
Yeah,
We completely
yeah.
agree with you.
So I think regardless of those numbers, it's all semantics. It's whether you feel that the project is sufficiently parked overall and whether there will be the 198 parking spots that we are obligated to provide and make available to the public, which we acknowledge would be used at some portions of the day by potential users of our building, in addition to other users in the area, or not. So obviously, that's the decision you guys have to make. But I did want to point out that that was clearly articulated on that, regardless of how you count whether those need to be there all the time. I will also point out there really are not any opportunities in the Triangle District to provide public parking. So regardless of the 1 hour that we might be close to, depending on how you count the numbers, whether we're at the maximum or over or under parked, the city is getting a huge benefit for our ability, and I acknowledge we're getting 35 units potentially on that, but they are still getting, however you want to count it, 150 plus parking spots that will be available to the public that are not there today and will not likely be there with any other development in the Triangle District. And I think being in the Triangle District now with our owners policies, we recognize that you will not get commercial developments in there if you don't have parking. So I just want to point out, notwithstanding, the code or anything like that, this is a huge benefit, and, we are trying to make the numbers work, and, we had tried to maximize the parking knowing this would be an issue from day one, but we were also trying to incorporate many important features of the building. So with that, I will turn it over to Victor to at least give an overview of the building, because I think we started with the most difficult subject and we neglected the beauty that was created.
Okay, before you start, just for some bit of housekeeping, Mr. Dupuy, we're going to move on to the next item, which is 34952 Woodward and 690 East Maple. This is the request for the preliminary site plan. Mr. Dupuy, given where we're at, I'm wondering if we could just turn it over to Mr. Soroki and allow him to make his presentation in lieu of a full report. How do you feel about that?
Bigger question structurally about the agenda, just to be clear. We did the CIS first, that's first on the agenda. Technically, it moves to special land use on the agenda. I know at the start, you mentioned that we usually review these in tandem.
Yes.
I think you need to probably just state that for the record, that we're bumping that up, if you wanted to do that, just so it's clear.
I think, given all that we've just discussed, it's appropriate to listen to a presentation on the site plan right now, as opposed to waiting for another project to come through. I think we need to hear this now.
That being said, I'm happy to save a lot of time in that, just suggesting to you that we're at preliminary. We're really just looking at bulk area setback stuff. There's a lot of design review factors. Victor, if I could ask, short on the design, it's important, but it's not a preliminary item. And in an effort to save time, let's focus on the big preliminary site plan issues, if that's all right to everyone. I know you've, as usual, designed, fleshed out final site plan level drawings, but perhaps when it comes to design, maybe we could be a little shorter.
Sure.
But structurally, there's no major concerns here, aside from, just to repeat, the variance that's required for the story at this point, so.
Right, and resolving these matters that we discussed already.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you very much, and thank you for the acceptance of the CIS. So, Nick, let's actually start with the ground floor, please. As Sam said, we've been working on this project for quite a while. It's a complicated project. We've assembled what we feel is a first-class team of engineers, developers, architects. We're partnering with a national architectural firm called BKV also that specializes in multifamily work. Of course, we're the local architect and we're the design architect on the project. And we've worked closely with BezTech on all aspects of the site, but we're really taking our cues from the site and how to maximize the site and put it to its best potential for the city and for the user. And so on the ground floor, we have some commercial uses, and along Woodward, we have retail uses. We actually, in the pre-application, did not call out the restaurant, but as we got into it further, we felt that a restaurant use was a good use for this corner. A restaurant, by the way, is a very good use in a mixed-use building. Food uses are very common in major mixed-use buildings in urban cities, whether it's a restaurant, a carryout, a deli, a market, a grocery store. Those are the highest and best uses for a mixed-use building. They also help activate the first floor, and it would contribute to the downtown. A restaurant would draw people to the east side of Woodward. Right now, and by the way, the restaurant probably is going to be more of a fine dining restaurant. It's not going to be, let's say, Coney Island is going to be open for lunch, right, and breakfast. It's probably going to be a fine dining restaurant. We've designated it to be about 5,000 square feet, but it will bring people across Woodward. Obviously, you know, we did Forest, and that's one of the few dining restaurants over there in this proximity. And they would love to see another restaurant because it creates a district for them and it brings more people there. So a restaurant is a very good practical use in a mixed-use building. And we were able to take advantage of the setback, the large right-of-way setback on Maple, where we can put the outdoor dining as well. And we had shown that at the pre-application meeting. I think another unique feature to this building and this design is that we have 3 access points into the site, into our building, which is kind of unusual, but we have the ability to do it, and we went to the extra effort to do it. Obviously, we have an access point off of the alley that will bring us into our parking facilities, into the garages. We have access from, we'll call it the Slip Street Woodward, which brings us into our building. And that access, by the way, is a very important gesture to the city. It's a threshold or a volume that directs itself towards the downtown area. And it's both for pedestrians to walk and for vehicles to come in and out. And then the last access point is off of Maple. So that is a nice advantage, and we have 3 access points. We have worked with Rich and Associates, Dave Rich, to really maximize and optimize the parking structure. In fact, to be honest with you, we lost about 25 parking spaces just working with Dave Rich. You would have thought it would have gone the other way around.
That sounds like Dave.
That sounds like Dave. Because he knew that this deck.
Learned that from his father.
He knew that this structure is also being used by the public. So having wider aisles, having good turning radiuses, having sight lines, not having dead ends, created a better structure but less parking. So that's one of the items that Sam's talking about, where we went through efforts that took away parking. You know, and then, of course, there's the streetscape improvements. Right now, there's really none to speak of. One of the things we did was there is perpendicular spots, or diagonal spots, I should say, in that Slip Street. We took them out and we reduced the number of spots again because we wanted to improve the streetscape. So we went with parallel spots, and we have only 7 spots. So we gave up half the spots that were there. But it allowed us to have a wider streetscape, a wider sidewalk, to plant trees, to put benches, and put all the things we like to see in the downtown area. And of course, we have a nice streetscape also on Maple. Right now, it's very minor and meager. This would be, again, about a 14-foot wide streetscape on Maple. And Maple, as you know, is a little bit congested there. It's a little bit tight. So that is very welcome news. And then, of course, with that large right-of-way, the building at the corner is set back nicely and then juts out where the property line juts out. And by the way, there is a bus stop right about where I'm pointing. It's almost where one of our entries is. So we're moving the bus stop to the west. And we're going to surround it in this nice landscape bed. So it'll actually be a very beautiful space for a bus stop. And we're just moving it to the west a little bit. So that talks about the uses on the first floor. And, of course, the important uses for the residents is that we have, we're going to have one grand lobby that the apartment owners would use, but also the condo owners can use it, and there will be a concierge desk in that main lobby. And then there is also a separate condominium lobby. In addition to having access to Maple and the street to go to the downtown, there's also access internally. So there's access into the the apartment lobby internally here, and there's access into the condominium lobby also from the interior. Again, another, I think, important move that we made was we created the drop-off and pickup areas of this building internally. They're not on the street. Most buildings are on the street. This was, again, another move that was intentional, beneficial for the city, beneficial for us, but as a result, we gave up some parking spaces to do those sort of things. I'm only mentioning it because parking is top of mind, right? To go further, I would say that our loading zones are all internal, our trash areas are all internal, so there's nothing external. Everything is within the building. I'm even going to go so far as to say 100% of our parking is fully concealed, covered, and integrated in our building. You don't see any of it from the street. From any of our facades, and you're going to see our renderings, you don't see any parking spots. I don't know if there's many buildings that really do that, especially buildings of this magnitude with this many parking spaces. You know, again, if you think of like 555, where it does have parking available, it's up on stilts and it's very exposed as well. The only spots that you, by the way, even see are the 7 right-of-way spaces in the street. I think that, you know, there's also other incidentals in here, but the gist of it is there's other remaining retail space down on Woodward, and we obviously will look for the proper kind of retailers to fill that space. Maybe, Nick, we could go down. We have 2 levels of underground parking. This won't take too long to just describe them, but we look for every parking space. You know, buildings like this have a lot of structure, and we got to, again, work with structure. We got to work with the geometry of the garage. But we created a sub-level 1 of parking and a sub-level 2 of parking. They're pretty close to being the same. There's small differences and nuances within those decks because of where utilities are going to be and things like that. We are also in the lowest sub-level 2. Below that level, we're providing the underground storm detention, and that you see, which is the one that was just we talked about it being designed for a 100-year storm. So that is actually below our sub-level 2, and there will be pump stations and so on that will discharge it at the appropriate times. Nick, maybe we can then just kind of go to, okay, so this is now the mezzanine parking lot. And we call it a mezzanine because it's kind of an easy way to understand it. But this is the, I'm going to call it hidden floor within the building. And this is where we're going for a variance. So what we did was, when you look at our building section and you look at our elevations, we have a very tall first floor, 20 feet floor to floor for the retail uses. You know, the ordinance requires it to be at least 14 feet. We went to 20. And in a big building like this, that's appropriate, it's elegant, retailers would like it. We're going to have big storefronts, big windows. But we're able to insert in the back half of that another level of parking. So the parking doesn't need 20 feet. It's a good way to capture more parking and parking over parking and still keep the storefront high. But again, it's this hidden level within the building. It is technically a floor, which is why we are going to go to the BZA and get a variance. I think it's a reasonable request. It's a good way to use spaces within the building that nobody really even sees, but the users will know that those spaces are there. And we're still working within the heights that are permissible by the ordinance. So we're not asking for additional height. We're just asking for the definition of a floor because it exceeds what a mezzanine is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
If we go to the next slide, this is getting into the residential floors, and this is our second floor. So now you are seeing apartment units in this sort of almost a C shape. And then there is this very large courtyard in the middle. That courtyard is landscape. It will have fountains in it. It will have fire pits in it. There will be outdoor areas. There'll be grill areas. And the areas that are in pink are the amenity spaces of the building. You know, these mixed-use buildings, the amenities are very important. I think you've obviously seen Birmingham Point, and you've been to it, hopefully. They've got the rooftop pool and terrace, and they've got some very nice interior amenity spaces for fitness, for gathering areas, for some kitchens, for entertaining. And we're going to have all of that. In fact, our amenity space, a very large portion of it is 2 stories, and that's going to be the very tall fitness areas, very grand, and that actually becomes a focal point on the building design on the exterior. And that's one of the elements when we look at the elevations. I'm going to talk about how there's some notable features on this building and on this corner. That 2-story amenity space is intentional to address that. In addition, there is a long facade here on Woodward, and we didn't want just one long flat facade. So we broke the facade, we set it back 10 feet, and that 10-foot setback goes all the way up the building. Again, that's an intentional move. We lose some efficiencies in doing it, but it's a good design to do it. Otherwise, you'd have this very large facade that is very flat. So we're trying to break the line and break the scale. We didn't need to do it on Maple because there is an offset naturally with the property line, and that creates a nice break and a distinction for the building. And when you see the elevations, you'll also notice that that facade treatment is special because that's where the building entry is going to be. That whole facade you'll see is in a limestone or a cast stone kind of material. Of course, there's building elevators, there's a freight elevator, there's trash rooms, there's all the things that a building like this needs to have. But we've tried to be very careful and thoughtful of the placement. And by the way, we've gone through an extensive exercise with BESTEC in looking at the unit layouts, unit by unit. I mean, we're sweating details of closets, bathroom sizes, living areas. I mean, that's how far we've gone. I mean, really, we're trying to really optimize all of it. Just going on to the next slide. This is the 3rd floor where you're seeing, again, more apartment units. This is a little different because this is that 2-story space. Some of the amenity space is 1 story, and some of it is 2-story. The spaces that face the courtyard are 1 story, but the spaces that face Maple and Woodward are the 2-story spaces. Go to the next slide. Now you're getting into the upper floors. This is the 4th level floor plan where now you're seeing all apartments all the way up. 5th level, very similar, apartments all the way up. 6th level, more apartments. 7th level is a little different. We have apartments on the front side of the building, but then on the roof of the 6th floor, we have our outdoor terrace and pool amenity deck. So we have the interior courtyard at the 2nd level, that interior courtyard I talked about the first time. By the way, that courtyard is almost 14,000 square feet. It's like 100 feet wide by 130 feet. I mean, it's huge. And it needs to be. I mean, this is a big, important building. And that is a courtyard that is intended to be very quiet, very serene, and it will provide a very, I think, tranquil experience from a busy intersection of Woodward and Maple. We know Woodward is a major thoroughfare. And sound, treatment of sound and acoustics is going to be very important to us as we design the facade of the building. But this rooftop terrace has a nice pool. It has cabanas, pool seating, a pergola structure. There'll be restrooms and bathrooms, and it'll be landscaped as well. Then we get to, that was the 7th floor, and then that pool terrace, and then we get to the 8th floor. So when we get to the 8th floor, this is where one of those bonus floors comes in, and we're required to set it in. So we set it in 10 feet, which is required by ordinance. So you get these really tremendous terraces all the way around along the frontage lines, which is a requirement of the ordinance, but actually becomes a benefit for the users, right? We've done these, and these terraces are really magnificent. and they're going to be long and spacious. So the 8th floor and the 9th floor are the condominium units of the building. So the building is primarily residential apartments, but the top 2 floors have 27 condominiums. And that's what you're seeing. That's the 8th floor, oh, you're on the 9th floor now. So we set it back again. You get that sort of stepping element. The next slide really talks about some building sections. Not that we have to dwell on it too much, but, you know, here's the section through the whole 9 floors. This is actually that interstitial floor right here. No, that's not. It's not in the section. Is it, Jeff? This is it, right? That's it. There it is. That's that 2-story retail space. And then that's that parking floor, additional parking floor. There's the level 1, and then we call it the mezzanine parking. This is that 2-story amenity space, and you're seeing the apartments, and then the top 2 floors where the building starts stepping back. Those are the condos in that dark gold color. And then this is just another section through that 6-story portion, and you can see all the levels of parking that are proposed. 2 full levels underground and 2 levels above. Yes.
So the chart we have in our materials talks about 2 or less room unit. How many one-bedroom units are you proposing out of the?
128 one-bedroom units?
128 one-bedroom units.
Well, one room, I should say, they're called, technically the term is 2 rooms or less, right? So when we say 2 rooms or less, there is the living area.
Yes.
And a bedroom.
So we're not counting studios here?
No,
Okay.
no. There is a bedroom, a bath, and a living area. The living area is
Okay.
like a kitchen, dining, and living room.
Thank you.
3 or more rooms is
Too
a
bad.
2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay? These are unit layouts, we don't have to dwell on them. I know you've studied them and you're over the weekend in the package. Okay, so now we get to some of the fun stuff. We talk about the design of the building, and, you know, again, a lot of effort has gone in. This is meant to be a very sophisticated, tailored, handsome urban building. It's primarily a masonry building. It's all brick. You know, when we design buildings, we think a good design, especially on major buildings like this, is to have a base, a body, and a top. And this building has that. You know, there's the base, which is all the first floor story of retail, and it's the first floors are all limestone. But then at the corner, this is that gesture of the 2-story amenity space. And this is one of those significant elements in the design that talks about buildings on the corner and how we treat it. But in addition to that, as we go up the building, the 7th floor is also in a limestone, and then the 8th and 9th floor are in the same stone-like material. It may be limestone, it may be a limestone panel, we're still working through all of that. But the idea is you get this wedding cake kind of effect, where the building, again, steps and steps. And, you know, the ordinance talks about important corner features or features on a prominent corner that make the building distinctive. We feel that the base, we feel that the 2-story amenity space, we feel the materials, and we feel this wedding cake effect addresses all of those items. You know, another thing that's just kind of interesting, not that we can take credit for it, but I think we all know Woodward and Maple are not at a 90-degree sort of intersection, right? Because Woodward is at a diagonal, right? Woodward was it was built because of Detroit to Pontiac, right? That's the rationale. So, whereas the mile roads all run east-west, they're true, east-west. But Woodward is at this sort of acute angle. So the property line is not, the building is not at a 90-degree either. It's going to be like 70 degrees, which is kind of interesting. I think from this perspective, you are going to see that it's not a 90-degree corner. Now, obviously, there are very famous buildings like in New York, if you talk about the Flatiron buildings and stuff like that. Those are much sharper buildings. But we have a little bit of that effect here going on, which is kind of interesting and kind of unique. And we wanted to follow those property lines. We wanted to make it urban and hug those, that street grid. But again, also in this rendering, I think you see successfully that 10-foot setback, that's a significant setback. It's not a foot or two. It's 10 feet back, but it breaks the line of the building in a tremendous way. And then here's that big gesture that takes you in, you'll see it in another slide, that takes you into the building, but it's also a statement back to downtown Birmingham on the west side. And you're also seeing, this is the element that projects out where the property line comes closer to Maple, and that is all in limestone. And again, that's because that is our building entry. That is where our residents would, if you're on the street where you identify the entry to the building, it's right there. And we felt that the limestone makes it a more noble and elegant material and creates a distinction. Here's another view. This is again showing that slip street. Here you're seeing that gesture of the very large opening facing the downtown and facing the west side of town. And then you're seeing the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors, and you're getting that sort of wedding cake kind of effect. And then you're just getting another view. This is sort of a twilight shot. But again, you're seeing how you're going to look into the building. Those amenity spaces will be really dramatic, both from the users inside, but also from outside as well. And we have a really nice streetscape treatment here, and we'll have lots of landscaping and hopefully some outdoor seating in this area as well. And now you're looking from a bird's eye view really down into that courtyard space, and you can see how large and significant that courtyard is. And the interior units will all face that. In fact, there's probably, your first impression is the best units are going to be on Woodward and Maple. It may not be. People may actually prefer to be on the interior because of the serenity of the interior and looking down to this courtyard. And in fact, early on, we had our pool down there. And we had lots of discussions with Sam and his family and his uncle and partners. And it was decided that the pool was going to be too much activity down there, that they would rather put the pool up. And also, the pool in the wintertime is not always the best looking view, right? Because it's kind of covered over. So we want to keep that courtyard beautiful year-round. And we can do that and put the pool up high. Also, the pool being up high is better for sun exposure. So, when you're down in the courtyard, there are times of the day where the pool won't get as much sun. Being up here, we will get the sun. And then just another twilight shot of the building. And, again, we're excited about it. This is probably the biggest project the city has seen that I think, at least in my lifetime, but it's, I don't know if 555 is larger or not, but this is of the magnitude of one of the biggest projects in the city. We want to see it done right. I hope we can get through and in a appropriate way, the parking, and find a solution to a very important site. I think I've heard it from this board, but I have also said it myself. This is probably one of the most important sites in Michigan, right? So we got to do it right. And
It's not one of, it is
Probably
the.
the most important site.
I should say the most important. And so I think we've got a team here to do it. Sam and his family, they've got the capacity, the knowledge, the experience. We have assembled also our design team. We hope we haven't failed you yet. We've always delivered on our promises. And we hope that this will be another very important project for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soroki. Let me just again say it's stunning. The attention to detail, the design, the way you went about intentionally laying this building out is wonderful. It is everything we want at this corner and in this community. We just have some obstacles to get over, but I know we can work together to try and get through that. I don't know if the board has any comments they want to make at this point. I have one or two minor comments regarding the site plan, but, I don't know that they're...
Let's not get into it.
Anyone care to comment? We have a larger discussion perhaps on elements.
I just want to ask that we were going to have the opportunity to have this dialogue
Absolutely.
another night.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Fine. Then I think we should move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Motion, do you want it 30 days? What do you think?
Well, I think our next meeting. But we don't have a meeting the first week of April because of...
Right.
So a month from now?
I think it would be.
That's our next meeting.
22nd?
I believe so.
So,
And we can
Yeah.
ensure that police and
pack it
Vanderbrink
in.
will be here.
Yes. We could.
Of course.
it's an intro.
Yeah,
So we'll have a lot of dialogue
Yeah.
before then.
This is
course.
important.
All right, so let me make a motion to, guess the word is postpone or reschedule,
Yeah, postpone, please. That's the
postpone consideration of the site plan and design review for 34952 Woodward and 690 East Maple to April 22nd, 2026.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Boyce, thank you. Conversation at a board level?
Is it the 22nd? Is that the right date?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the only comment I would make, and Mr. Chairman, you probably know better than I, that is the kickoff night for our zoning.
It is, but it's also an introductory kickoff night, and I think that this is arguably the most important project we've seen come before us in quite some time.
So we can
So
handle both.
I think we will find a way. We have to.
Robin, in the old days, we used to go till midnight.
I know.
that.
And beyond.
And if it helps, I don't have anything else.
Yes. No, I think we have
It's just
to,
these
in my opinion, we
That's
need
all.
to do this.
Yeah, expeditiously.
And that'll give them time for consultants to talk and all of the
And
good things that needs to happen.
Okay, good.
To the public, would anyone care to comment on the motion to postpone? This is just on the motion to postpone. Anyone care to comment? I see no people standing up. I see no hands raising on Zoom. Bring it back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all of the time and effort you put into this and your kind words tonight. It was, let's get together in a month and hopefully move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, all the members of the planning board.
Senior moment.
Okay. 2-minute break? You gotta take
No,
a
we're going to
break?
keep going, but you can sneak out if you need to.
See, no problem.
Okay. Oh, Ms. Aldred Ahrens, pardon me. I had a moment of, wait, there's a hyphen there.
It's okay, I got married, it's all right. Well, we're going to talk about some tacos, if you'd like.
Yes, let's move on to our
Change
next
of
item.
pace.
Bring them in.
We have both a special land use permit and a site plan and design review for 126 South Old Woodward, Snap Taco.
Correct.
Again, for those watching at home, these are two separate items, but we're going to do them in concert since they all intertwine so much.
Absolutely. So the applicant has submitted a special land use permit, final site plan review and design review application for a new bistro on the first floor tenant space of an existing building on South Old Woodward in the former location of Kaku Sushi. Snap Taco describes their business, and they described it in their presentation to the City Commission, as a full-service Mexican restaurant designed to cater to quick lunch visitors, those who prefer to dine in, as well as those looking for healthy alternatives. So the current hours are Monday to Sunday from 11 to 9 p.m. And on February 9th, 2026, the City Commission moved Snap Taco forward to apply for a special land use permit to become a bistro. So as a bistro, the zoning ordinance requires outdoor dining to be provided, which is a bulk of our conversation here tonight. So I'm going to go through a little bit. I'm going to go through both the outdoor dining and the final site plan and SLUP requirements here. So I'm going to keep these pretty pictures up for you all. Zoning, very simple. It's B4, D4. Surrounded by commercial in our downtown area. Article 9 talks about defining bistro as a restaurant with a full-service kitchen with interior seating of no more than 65 people and additional seating for outdoor dining with no more than 65 people. Reminder, it does require outdoor dining. Snap Taco is under that, proposing 30 seats in the restaurant and 5 bar stools for a total of 35 seats. In addition, Snap Taco is proposing an outdoor dining patio with 8 seats, so under the 65 required. There's a lot of empty space here. We're talking about no changes proposed to the site plan, no changes to dumpster screening, parking lot screening, etc. There's no changes to any parking, loading, or circulation, no lighting to review, and we can talk a little bit about some minor changes to the facade in the design review portion. So the applicant has submitted specifications. There are a few minor specifications that are changing here. You can see here I'm highlighting the Applicant has proposed to replace their window here with a garage door that can recline to let in fresh air, and also appears to be proposing a railing here to prevent foot traffic in through that garage door. Appears to be of high quality with clear windows. However, the applicant still must require to be submitting the glazing specifications for this garage door, and at this time has not done that, along with any other specifications for modifications for the outdoor. Maybe the applicant can provide some more information on that when he comes up, as well as the railing. Those are the only changes to the facade at this time. For the outdoor dining, the applicant is proposing an 8-seat arrangement here.
It's pretty small.
It is roughly 66 square feet and is located in the furnishing zone. The applicant has proposed the patio area to actually extend out into the area, so a little bit in front of their business here and extend out into their neighbor, Faraday there. And I know they have been working together to talk with that. However, the applicant still must submit to us the approval from the property owner to extend that patio into their neighbor's property. The rendering of the patio area here appears to have things in high quality. Examples of seating and of the planters to be used have been provided. You can see that in this image here. The applicant appears to be satisfying the outdoor dining requirements, including the necessary items like trash receptacle, that sort of thing. They must submit revised plans with the final table identified. That is the one piece that's still remaining, and must submit those specifications as well. So that being said, the project appears to be of high quality. We've gone back and forth with the applicant a few times. We are recommending approval with the specifications and the requirements being met, along with the additional materials being submitted.
Great. Any questions for staff? Mr. Scher.
So is the west side of the outdoor dining patio open?
It is enclosed. The side to the, if we're guess, to the sidewalk, it's not fully enclosed. It's enclosed to the street. And then, if you can see here, zoom in. Maybe the applicant would like to provide more further context.
There's a rail.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening.
You can try to introduce yourself, yeah.
2 weeks ago, Michael Lico. One thing we want to say, we took your input 2 weeks ago, and some of the requests that you asked, we have looked at all those. The other input that we got back was from Faraday with the Leah Group, Zaid, and they requested that we remove the area in front of their doors. That's why it got smaller from when you saw it 2 weeks ago. So that was a request from them. They're also requesting that we don't try to reduce any sight lines into their store. So that's one of the reasons we come back with no umbrellas right now. We do know that area in the evening is the sun is behind the building, so we really don't see that as an issue. So we've been working with them a lot. And the Elia Group has approved it, but we're waiting for their final approval because Faraday is in New York City, so it's a corporate company.
Okay.
They're happy. They're supposed to be giving us approval by tomorrow, so that's what we're looking to get the final approval from them for this. One of the ideas is we looked at the benches because there was a concern about the chairs going into the walking area. So on that west side that you were just asking about, those are benches that cannot be easily moved. They'll be a little bit heavier, that will block off the area. And then the concern about the roadside, we use these built-in planter benches here to block the roadside, give us better protection from the cars. That was requested also. We did also look at the request of moving the tables at a 90 degree, which would have worked, except for when we had to reduce the square footage of this. We weren't able to do that because then we got too close to the parking meters. So we had to go back to the original method. Right now online, Justin Medell from Design House and Sal Lorenzo, our architects, are online. So if there's any questions, I'm sure to be happy to answer those for you too.
Any questions? Ms. Boyce?
I just want to say that I think you did a great job. Thanks for, hearing us last week. I'm sorry that your outdoor dining got so small.
We are too good.
But,
It's our first step.
good choices in furniture to, address some of our concerns about the potential movement of the chairs into the walking space and all of that. So I'm really happy with it. I love the addition of your little garage door. I mean, it's super, it's great. It's a really cool idea. So
Excited about it, too.
that's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you. I think it looks great. I think you did a great job. So
Thank you.
can't wait to see it.
Mr. Jeffers?
I'm thinking back to the, we had one that we approved. It was a Japanese thing next to Six Salon. And I remember when they put up their stuff in the furnishing zone right up to the curb, when a car pulled in, it dented it. I mean, it hits the thing. How is,
We're in line with the meters, so
Okay,
we're
so-
actually backed off a little bit from the meters.
oh, okay, so this is a little
I think
deceiving.
you're
then.
looking,
It looks like it's like.
Justin, can you comment on that? I don't know if you can hear us on Zoom.
You may have to be unmuted.
You maybe see on the plan.
Yeah.
You have someone raising their hand.
Yeah, we got it.
So if you look at the drawing, I'm the architect,
sir, if
Justin
you-
Dill. If you look at the drawing, it's backed off from the curb. You can see that, so that way the cars don't have as much opportunity to hit the planters.
Can I ask for an introduction, for the record, I need to know who that was, please?
Justin, can you
Yes,
please?
so I'm Justin Medill, and I'm the architect of the project.
Thank you very much.
I work for Design House Architecture.
Wonderful. Other questions?
No, looks great.
Mr. Curry?
The planters, what's the material?
Justin, the planter material?
Oh, sorry, I have to keep asking them to unmute.
I believe they're
So the planters are aluminum.
Yeah.
Anodized?
Great.
Are they
Anodized, how is the color?
Is it finished?
Yeah, what's the finish?
The finish is the satin black.
Okay,
It
so,
will match the same color as the garage door.
okay, so anodized aluminum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Somebody should-
Let's go to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on the proposed
We may have to,
site plan for Snap Taco? I see no other hands going up.
I think there's something.
No one going up here. We'll bring it back to the board. Looks great. Does anyone care to make a motion?
Can I ask a question
Yes.
of Nick first? Nick, is there a reason that the proposed motion doesn't have an adoption of the findings of the report?
Probably just a miss. It was a very busy week.
Okay, so this would be the final site plan is 7.27, and the other one 7.36, is that right?
Sorry, what?
The motion language does not include some of the new
Yeah,
verbiage that we adopted.
7.27 and 7.26.
7.26.
Yep,
All right, why don't you make the motion?
And 27 is the site plan, right?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yes.
And then I
Mr. Chair,
Motion.
please.
I move the planning board adopt the findings of the planning department report dated March 25, 2026, with respect to the items required under section 7.27 of the zoning ordinance, and recommend approval of the final site plan and design review for 126 South Old Woodward Snap Taco, subject to the following conditions. One, the applicant submit glazing specifications for the glass, along with any other specifications for any other modifications to the exterior, such as railing. Two, the applicant must receive and submit approval from the property owner in order to extend the patio to the furnishing zone in front of their neighbor's property. Number three, the applicant must submit revised plans with the final table selected for the patio and must submit detailed specifications. And four, the applicant must comply with requests of all city departments.
Support.
Motion, Mr. Chair, support, Mr. Williams. Conversation at our board level. To the public one last time on the motion to recommend approval of the final site plan and design review. Is there anyone in the public here to comment on the recommendation to approve the final site plan and Design Review. I see no hands. We'll bring it back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous.
So I've got a motion on the special land use permit.
I would love you to keep it rolling.
I move the planning board adopt the findings of fact in the planning department memo dated March 25, 2026 with respect to the required items in Article 7.26 of the zoning ordinance and recommend approval to the city commission for the special land use permit for 126 South Old Woodward, Snap Taco, subject to the following, subject to all the conditions contained in the final site plan and design review recommendation.
Support.
Motion, Mr. Scher, support, Mr. Williams. Conversation at a board level. To the public one final time, any comment on the motion to recommend approval of the special land use permit for Snap Taco? Anyone from the public care to comment on the motion to recommend approval of the special land use permit for Snap Taco? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Very much. We're looking forward to it. It's nice to see a bistro that's a different size. There's something different about it, so. Fantastic. All right.
Clover Hill.
Moving along. We have a site plan and design review for 2425 East 14 Mile, our friends from Clover Hill Park Cemetery.
All righty.
Mr. Dupuy.
Another thin report where I'll be repeating no changes proposed for a while, so I'm going to choose not to do that. But it's, as you mentioned, it's a final site plan and design review. It's a cemetery that's been there since 1918. It is split between two zoning districts, but in this case, we're down in the R2 zoning district. They've been here a couple of times in recent past. In 2021 is when they added the first edition. In 2023, they came back for, 2024, I believe, came back for some work at the north end, and now they're back for work on their administration building. It is a simple request at the end of the day. It's a small addition to their existing Shiva room. They also want to kind of cover their patio that they built as a part of the 2021 project. Most of the things, like I said, are not changing, not even the landscaping over there at this point. This building is still set back over 200 feet from 14 Mile and over 250 feet from the neighbor to the west. So it's about as far back as it gets for any property around here. No new dumpsters, no new parking, things like that. None of that is changing. There are no new lights. It's going to match all the existing design features, the limestone, the glazing of the original edition. I did send it around to all the different departments. Most of them have no issues. There were some engineering department comments that seem to be pretty standard for the most part. And for those reasons, we did recommend that you all consider approval, just with a couple of conditions. One, comply with city departments, and two, I guess, and I decided for this reason, for this one to include that provision about site plan expiration, but that's just because it was in the other report I wrote for this one. So that's about it. Of course, the applicant's here and has patiently waited. Thank you, Ms. Rasnick, for doing so. Should you have any questions about the project?
Well, can you just throw up the elevation, just so we can see?
Oh, of course,
They
yeah.
went through all the trouble. I'd like to, okay,
Yeah.
beautiful. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Dupuy or the applicant?
I just had one question for
Mr.
Nick.
Scher?
The date on your report's kind of off. Can we amend it to today, or?
I sure am. I'm stuck in 2025, my brother. Yeah. Yes, you can. Oh, dang, we're all over the place.
I have a comment.
Yeah, help me.
They'd be
Help me.
expired today.
March 25th, 2026, please.
Yeah.
There we got that.
Mr. Williams, you got a comment?
Good
I have
job.
a comment about Clover
Did I tell you it
Hill.
was a long week last week? I said that already? Busy week?
Former,
Mr. Williams?
former planning board member Sam Haberman is buried at this cemetery. You do a wonderful job, above and beyond. And appreciated by those who attend.
Did you want to say anything, or are you going to quit while you're ahead? I mean, feel free, it's up to you. Right.
My name is Kim Rasnick. I'm the executive director at Clover Hill. Been there about 8 years, and I'm a resident of Birmingham as well. I just wanted to thank you all for your consideration of what we do at Clover Hill. This project is really important. The Shiva Center is the only Shiva Center of its kind on the property in any Jewish cemetery in the United States. So it's really special, and our donors built this for the entire community. You don't have to be buried at Clover Hill to utilize it. In fact, today we had a Shiva from a family who was buried at Gratiot, buried their loved one at Gratiot, and they came back to utilize the facility. And this week alone, we had 4 Shivas. So we're serving the community as best we can, and we take a lot of pride in what we do and preserving the reputation and caring for those souls there. So thank you for everything that you do, and I love Birmingham. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
All right. To the public, is there anyone in the public who cares to comment on the proposed site plan? If you are on Zoom, you can use the raise your hand function. Any comments? I see none. Bring it back to the board. All right, Mr. Scher, did you have something to say?
I do. I move we adopt the findings of the planning department in the report now dated March 25, 2026, related to the approval criteria outlined in Article 7, Section 727 of the zoning ordinance, and approve the final site plan and design review application for 2425 East 14 Mile Clover Hill Park Cemetery, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the applicant must comply with the requests of all city departments. And number 2, the applicant understands that site plan approval should be valid for a period of 1 year from the date it is granted. Upon request, the appropriate reviewing body may grant an extension of not in excess of 1 year to the applicant prior to the expiration date in accordance with Article 7, Section 7.28 of the zoning ordinance.
Support.
Motion, Mr. Scher, support, Mr. Williams. Any conversation at a board level? To the public on the motion, anyone from the public care to comment on the motion to approve the final site plan? Bring it back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous. Thank you very much.
It was worth the wait.
It was.
All right, no study session.
Thank you.
Mr. Dupuy, if you say that there's a pre-app, I'm going to have words. No community. Project updates. I don't know if any of any questions.
I don't know, there's a couple of new things down there. I thought I should just point out, there's a renovation happening at City Hall, just a garage, but I thought you might like to know that the Adams Square development just changed hands, at least the southern
I'm sorry,
three
speak up.
quarters.
So I can speak,
Oh, the Adams Square development, the southern like 3/4 of it.
Right.
Changed hands recently, and he's been in
Again?
looking to
knock it down.
improve the facade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, not quite yet, Robin. You wish. So you'll be seeing a lot of work over there
That was
potentially.
off the record.
Yeah, whoop, little slip there, Robin. Yeah.
Let's see, administrative approval, any questions? It doesn't look like much.
One daycare.
We have the agenda for the 22nd, which now is the kickoff meeting as well as the site plan, preliminary site plan for the project earlier today. Excellent.
And I'd like to ask, you are okay with that order of operations? We take care of the site plan and then do the zoning ordinance kickoff? Or
Yeah, I think we
do you
should.
feel otherwise?
I think we should.
Might
Okay.
enjoy seeing that as well.
I think
I think we
you're
should
probably
take
right.
care of the site plan first,
I agree.
because I don't want to be rushed on the clock if we're sitting here looking at,
Have a good night.
yeah,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
And am I, sorry, I'm speaking out of turn. Am I right in thinking that the day after is the real sort of involvement of the consultants in the city?
Yes, so we'll have some communications coming out shortly, but
Right.
they'll be here on the 22nd and the 23rd. The 22nd being our meeting. We'll be taking them on a little bit of a tour. They're going to meet with department heads, and then they're going to be at the planning board. The 23rd is when they're going to be holding their focus groups and their open house.
Right,
Because you asked, Brian, I found something interesting out about the focus groups. And what they said is that they actually prefer not to have any staff or any planning board members there. They think it adds some pressure or some influence, unintended or otherwise. So they actually set those up, just consultants and focus groups. So you had asked that maybe we have a planning board member in each of them. Well, I'm not even going to be in them, so don't be surprised if you don't get invited. That's the reason why. Open house is planned. I have some space reserved at the library for right now. That's the best space I've got. But of course, more details will come out real soon.
I saw something, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I saw something in there about neighborhood association presidents as being a somewhat representative of the neighborhoods. I would highly discourage that. They tend to be vocal and may not, and I know factually in a lot of cases, not represent their neighborhoods particularly well. Usually it's their
Yeah,
agenda.
and that's fine. I probably did say that. They just sent me a kind of a list of things they see elsewhere, and we're going to formulate our own for the most part.
The way we did charrettes, I thought was great. We just hit it from so many different ways that you got a good group. I don't know. All right. Do the same.
Any other business before the board tonight?
No.
Seeing none. Great job, everybody. Complex issues, but I think we did a good job. Meeting adjourned.